What up, everybody? This is Descry. We're doing a live response video, and I'm super excited because this one's going to be on villain theory. And as you know, if you're into the Marvel Champion community and the content creators out there, he is up and rising superstar, basically. Very similar to Tony Tails, who was very well known when he was active, but basically in a nutshell, he is some guy far away where I live, and he does really good deck builds and has an interesting analytical view on this game that we all like. And he's very knowledgeable, very like he has the proof in the pudding, as they say. So he knows what he's talking about. He's very good with the spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. But I'm gonna try my best to do a response video. Now, just a disclaimer. So these response videos aren't me just trying to argue and disagree with like people that put reviews or tier lists out. It's just a fun way to get a different perspective of someone else that plays the game. And mainly why I got the idea to do response videos is a couple reasons. Is one, I'm a small channel. I don't have the luxury to be invited on the bigger channels. Not to say I want to put pressure on the bigger channels to invite me on their channel, but also, if you're a small channel, this is a great way just to get other people to maybe hear your thoughts, because I'm sure we're all going to the bigger channels to see their take on the game, their reviews and all that. So I mean, it's another way for me to kind of inject myself into this community of content creators and all that. But the second reason is that I like disagreeing with people, or not that I enjoy it, but no, I like to I like discussion, and I like to see where other people are at, and I like having, like, not debates, but like I like to kind of go back and forth and really like discuss things. I enjoy like the discussion part. And so originally this response stuff was like I just winged it and just see, like, would it stick? Would people be interested in me doing response videos to some of the content creators? And I did not think it would be even popular. In fact, I thought like I'm wasting my time, but I did a few, and a lot of you guys like them. And I mean, my YouTube stats reflect that it's very popular. So and again, I am literally just kind of looking at their content and making kind of agreements, disagreements, or different viewpoints on what they're discussing. So going forward, we're going to go into Villain Theory's cable review, and it's quite long. I don't know if we're gonna I'm gonna respond to the whole entire video. I might speed it up a bit and try to give my key response videos. Hey, Board Game Lore, what's up? But again, I just want to stress, like, obviously I could be wrong on things. Just because I'm disagreeing doesn't mean I'm 100% right. It's basically, it's getting a different viewpoint for someone that plays the game differently. Or but what I can say about myself, like, I put in a lot of hours. I like the game. I'm passionate about the game, and I like the other content creators. I watch a lot of Let's Plays. I watch Nelson D20, Late Night Gaming. I like the smaller channels. I'm actually very active watching all these guys, and I think they're great content creators. And I also want to do some response video of smaller channels. Right now, Villain Theory is kind of small. He just started up, but I imagine in a couple months he's going to be like over 1,000, 2,000 subscribers. So I have no doubt he's going to be like a super channel. But let's kind of get into it. So we're gonna, I'm gonna listen, pause the video. If I find there's like interesting things to comment, again, if you people watching live, if you want to just insert a chat question or you want to challenge me on something that I said, write it in the chat. I'll try to also respond to my viewers as well. But anyways, let's kind of jump into this. So I got to show my screen, and then we're going to magically go into his video, and I'm just going to kind of play it.
Hi, I'm Villain Theory, and welcome to the video. Today we're talking about Cable. Hope you guys are all enjoying Next Evolution. I definitely am. And yeah, Cable has surprised me in a lot of ways. So I'm very excited to talk about him. I'm not going to go through every card in, exact detail.
I just want to say one thing is I love his layout, and he's doing slideshows, which I hope he doesn't mind if I steal his slideshow idea later on, because I never even thought about doing slideshows for Marvel Champions, but I like what he's doing with his channel and the slideshows. So he's got a lot of stats here, which is cool because that's his signature, right? He's very in-depth, kind of Tony Tales type of content creator here, with the spreadsheets and everything. I wondered though, and this is a little nitpick, but maybe I could be wrong in this, but you got fun factor, ease of play. Maybe those seem very similar to me in a way. You've got reliability, readiness. Like, I don't know if he could have maybe try to maybe mainstream, make a more simpler kind of stats here, like, because some of them to me seem a little bit too slim, like similar, and it's a long list that he has here. But I will say this, I do appreciate like how he's breaking up like damage, threat removal, survivability, economy, and I think I like that. But I'm thinking maybe some people might get turned off slightly that he's got such a long list. And then, some of the stuff, like I said, ease of play and fun factor, they kind of sound very similar to each other. But, I love what he's doing. And I personally like the long laundry list that he's got here because I'm all about the stats and everything. But I just wanted to make a comment about that. And also for him, I'm just wondering if he ever thought of maybe simplifying his like spreadsheet just a little bit more, so he doesn't have like a whole rap sheet of like different things that are kind of similar to each other. But yeah, I obviously, yeah, I just wanted to make that one comment because I did kind of say to myself, like, well, some of these are very similar to each other, and does he really need this many groupings to like go over a hero? I tried with my own guides, which they were very simple, and that was my approach. I did the Nick Fury quick and dirty, and I just made it like very simple. Like, this is a support type hero. This is a tank slash survivalist hero. Like, I try to make it very just 3 major points. But obviously he is the man here. He's the guy just started his channel like literally last week, and he's like, I think got like 300 subscribers already. Like, it's crazy. Like, just to give you an example, it took me almost a year to get to 200 subscribers when I first kind of started the Marvel Champion channel. So yeah, like, this guy is, I'm telling you, he's gonna be super big. But
this isn't sort of a guide to playing him. It's not, a deep look at every card. Kind of an overall review of my experience with him. And if you can see the screen here, if you've seen my previous video, you'll recognize it from my tier list. We're going to go through each of these categories and, give him a rating out of 5 stars, including 2 new ones. Because the tier list was for power.
Yeah, he's definitely an in-depth analyst.
Actual hero in terms of playing them is how much do you enjoy them. So I've added in variety and fun factor. I think fun factor speaks, for itself.
And I just want to say that it's weird because when I talked to Brant from the Portal, if you ever talk to him, he thinks the majority of Marvel Champion players are very like casual, like grandma and the kids, like which is weird because like I can't see grandma and the kids pulling up villain theories like guide and like because his guy for me, I feel like I'm in college right now preparing for a midterm, and he's like the professor theory here, like making sure like okay, you ready, Descry, to ace your test. This is what's going to be on the test. But yeah, talk to Brent from Portal. He thinks everyone plays precons and they're super casual, just standard players. So it's weird though because villain theory. I don't picture a casual player. Well, I could be wrong, but like I like his content, but I'm more hardcore and I'm really into this game. But I don't picture a casual person being like, okay, damage, threat removal, survivability, economy, control, reliability, readiness, card value, easy play. That doesn't sound casual to me. But I love it though. Okay, but yeah, talk to Brent. He'll tell you that everyone, it's like 80% is casual for Marvel Champions. Um, I love to figure out if there's an actual, like, if we can get raw statistics, because I think there's two camps in the community that thinks that there's a lot more like serious Marvel Champion players that build decks and, wants to play on expert. But then there's another group that thinks that it's just a bunch of pre-con people that just kind of, play Marvel Champions, just the core set and whatnot. Anyways, let's keep going.
How enjoyable is the hero? This is definitely, going to differ from person to person. So that's very personal to me. Whereas I feel like the other ones, yeah, it's my opinion on them, but it's kind of how I feel they are going to be for, most people. And variety is kind of, how fresh is each deck going to feel for him? Or is it going to feel the same no matter what?
So what he's doing right now, he's just kind of explaining how he is doing this review. He's just going over like sort of his method.
So yeah, I think we'll jump into it. 2 in every stat, very reliable. His response readies him when he defeats a side scheme. And I should probably mention here, there's a new player card type in Next Evolution called Player Side Schemes. Now, these are cards which just go in your deck like normal. You pay for them, they go into play. But they go into play like a normal, villain.
Now, I just want to say one thing. I know I'm pausing a lot here. There is an elephant in the room with his guide here that I kind of called him out on his comment. He does not mention Cable in any shape or form in this type of way, that Cable is kind of like a support hero. Now, what I mean by support hero, we're like you look at heroes like Storm that controls the weather control supports, Cyclops that can do like his different upgrade attachments that can reduce damage or draw people cards or do more damage. So, these are heroes that I sort of classify as support heroes that are able to do a lot of things that help themselves, but more importantly, the other team, multiplayer, right? And unless I missed it in his 50 so minutes, I don't ever hear him mention Cable being a support hero. Now, the reason why I believe Cable is a support hero is because if you look to the right, he has that setup, Soldier X. He also can include any player side scheme in his deck. So he could do aggression, justice, all of them. But more importantly, tactically and precisely, he can, depending on your situation or your scenario, he can pick the exact thing that puts into play. So you don't even have to pay the one cost or hope to draw into it. He could put in call for backup. He could put in take out the guards if, say, the scenario has a whole bunch of baddies that are non-elite. And he can pinpoint, just set that up. And you got to understand, guys, player size schemes are huge tempo. And what's so awesome about player size schemes is that it's not just like, okay, you get a couple supports early in the game. Like I said, you could do take out the guards. You can get a bunch of guns in. You can put toughs all on your heroes. You can, they're in the future, they're giving us these special support, increase your defense, increase your health, increase your attack and thwart. And you draw a card when you do these certain things. So it is very strong. Player size schemes is definitely a different way of playing the game. But to me, player size schemes represent kind of a support, kind of like the weather control supports from Storm. But yes, it's like going into like a side scheme, whatnot. But to me, Cable is the support side scheme player. Like, there's no one. Yes, you could technically go, oh, I'm gonna play um, leadership, Captain Marvel, and I'm gonna run take call for backup and all that. But you have to draw into it. You might not draw into that till like uh, maybe the fourth or at the very end of your deck, and like at that time it might not even be very useful. Like so really I don't think he really talks about that in this guide, and I think that was kind of a miss for him, because when I played Cable, um it just clicked right away for me. Like yes, Cable is the S tier support player size game in this game that we have. Like, he is the man. And just because of stuff like Soldier X, and his toolkit synergizes with him either to get these player size games out, to combat them, to effectively deal with them, to use them to his advantage with his readies and his upgrades. And another thing, and I think Nelson, I'm going to throw Nelson into this. Oh my God, I'm creating enemies. Nelson, and I think a lot of other content creators, there's a lot of confusion, okay? When you're doing these tier lists or talking how good a hero is, some of us are, I guess, talking solo. But here's the thing, guys, and I think deep down you know it's true, that the developers, even though you can play this game solo and it's fun, and I'm not saying don't play solo, at its heart, when the developers are making these heroes and the scenarios, they're making it for multiplayer. Like, and if you say, well, I don't agree with you on that, Descry, just look at Rogue. Okay, Rogue's a good example. One of her freaking main abilities of getting stalwart is you have to touch another hero. Okay, you can't even do that. You can't touch yourself playing solo. Let me read some of your comments. Heroic Skeleton says, I keep playing Cable with Miss Marvel, such a good combo. Yeah. I mean, he's able to set up other heroes quickly. I mean, how many times have you played Drax and you're like, damn it, please give me my Dewey T Mastery, please. And it's literally the second last card or last card. Well, you play with Cable and he's like, hey, buddy, turn one, go get your Dewey Teeth. And you're locked and loaded and you're ready to start smashing with Drax. But so he's amazing. And I'm so shocked that people are ranking him so low. Like, because to me, Storm is a S tier support hero. Cyclops is a S tier support hero. And Cable deserves to be in the S tier support hero branch. Now, you might be saying, well, Descry, you're saying support, S tier support. What the hell does that mean? Okay, well, I'm saying, yeah, obviously, I'm not, I don't like to rank heroes per se for solo play, because I believe in my heart that the game's best played in multiplayer or two-handed or whatever. But at the same time, I'm not trying to say don't play solo play, don't enjoy solo play. But if you want the game to sing and you want the cards to all synergize and you want that fun experience that the developers, okay, coming from the developers, they literally crafted this game to work in theory with the way they developed it for multiplayer. And that's the truth, because if you look at all these cards in the game, at its core, they're all pushing towards multiplayer, okay? Now, there could be a debate of, well, I don't agree with you, and this is why. Fine, we could have that debate, but I'm pretty confident I can back up that the game is really meant for multiplayer. Again, I want to stress, I'm not saying don't enjoy solo play. I played solo for this game for years, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. In fact, in some ways, it's more difficult playing this game solo, because you have to really bring your A game. You have to be deck build and be a jack of all trades. You got to deal with threat, deal with control, deal with this. There's a lot of things. But I just want to discuss the elephant in the room, because I don't believe he ever touches on it, which I'm kind of shocked because he's so knowledgeable. I just thought this was such an auto thing for him to be like, oh, by the way, this guy is literally the best support type hero for player size schemes. right up there with support heroes like Cyclops and Storm. But I don't believe he, unless I missed it, because I didn't watch the entire thing, but I never caught it in his video. But let's keep going.
Side scheme. Um, but they don't have anything negative on them for the most part. And you get a reward when you defeat them. So they're kind of an alternative way to use your forwarding. So you can get like some extra benefits, things like that. Very cool. The rulebook frames them all as missions. So, Cable is all about going on these.
I just want to respond to Ted, to Heroic Skeleton. So Heroic says that Domino feels so is like powerful out the gate. She overshadows Cable for a lot of people. I'm glad you mentioned that because Domino is super fun. Not gonna lie, love her. The combo, the funness, that like kind of like, am I gonna get this? Is my pistol gonna do 4-5 damage? 100% agree. She is a lot of fun, and she's more stylish. She's more like people are oohing and awing like the turns that she can have, like when you're playing on the table with Domino. But Cable is like he's more kind of simple in a way, but extremely powerful and focused and tactically just super strong. Not as flashy as Domino, but he has cards like Precognition, Body Slide. You can do some amazing, like, people don't understand how good these cards are, and especially when you bump it into Standard 2, Expert 2, or harder modulars, like, those cards are freaking amazing, and it just gets even better the bigger player count you go up. And I don't even hear people really talking too much about those cards. So I hear a lot of talk of, oh my God, Cable's Shadows of the Past is terrible. Therefore, he's like ranked a lot lower. His obligation can get, it gets him in a jam. But here's the thing, right? Whoever did, I don't know who made Cable, but they're smart because he's a late game, very high skill ceiling hero. And there's like Iron Man. He's a good example of kind of like, because you got to build them, right? So, but some people can build Iron Man really quick, depending on how they deck build. But yeah, when Iron Man gets built up, he's a powerhouse, right? Like, but the challenge with Iron Man is, your teammates kind of cover for Iron Man a little bit, and then he's, you're barely holding on by the skin of your teeth, and Iron Man comes in and just, does his thing. But Cable is one of those type kind of, as the game goes on, his power just increases dramatically. So there needs to be something, mechanism in there, and I'm glad the developers did it with the obligation, the Shadows of the Past. They made it so that, if you're not careful, now he has ways to counter his shadows, like with his force field and his future leap thing. Those are counters to the shadows. So I know some people are like, oh, it's so cheesy. This backfires on me and then I lose the game. But if you play those upgrades, you can kind of counterbalance that. Again, check the counter deck. You got Precognition. You can kind of like be like, nope, you're not going to fool me today. So I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding. Like, I agree. You get shadows on turn 1 with Cable. It's going to be a bumpy road, but I literally played Standard 2 Expert Juggernaut. We got shadows turn 1 on Cable, and I managed to take out Strife, and I didn't even really have a good hand to do it. But I had that first turn that Cable gets set up so quickly, far as getting a good utility or whatever you need with that Soldier X ability. But let's keep going. But I wanted to mention that because I know people are saying Domino is way more powerful than Cable. I highly disagree in one area, that in a team atmosphere, I would 100% rather choose Cable over Domino. Like, if I had to pick, I have like a team of 3 other people, and they said, well, I could either have Domino or Cable, and we really want to win this scenario. Who do you want? I would 100% pick Cable every time, because Cable is not just going to do stuff himself. He's going to also improve everybody on the table. And I'm not trying to knock Domino. Domino's great. I love Domino, and she is very strong. But I don't understand how people are saying like she's way more powerful than Cable. I mean, Cable, and again, this is the beauty of like this whole thing is like this is my point of view. You guys are getting my point of view, because a lot of the big channels you sort of almost get the same viewpoint from a lot of them. I'm the black sheep. I don't care if I'm like the only person in Discord that thinks a certain way. If I believe it in my heart, I believe it. But that is why you have come to me and I don't know if I'm like clown world right now, what I'm talking about, but I strongly believe these things. But I will say this. I'm a lot like Villain Theory. I've only played like 4 or 5 games of Cable. So I don't claim to know everything with Cable, but I feel like I can make some judgments on some of his things. And I might be wrong in some of the things I'm saying right now tonight. But he does mention that this review is not like a final review at Cable. Like it's his best thoughts on like how far he's gotten with Cable. So I appreciate him kind of like being open to say, hey, I might be wrong a little bit on some of the things I'm saying here. But he's very knowledgeable. Let's keep going.
Missions, these player side schemes. He's got this special deck building bonus where he can include side schemes from any aspect. So yeah, getting all these missions lined up for Cable to go on as a soldier, which I think is really cool, and I've really enjoyed it. Has been interesting to try and detangle the fun of player side schemes from the fun of Cable, but I think side schemes are inherently fun, and Cable uses them the most of anyone, so I don't think it matters too much. But yeah, side schemes for players are really cool. And his setup ability to find one from your deck or discard pile, which is, the timing is after, you draw your hand of cards and mulligan. I think that choice is one of the most in-depth and meaningful choices you'll ever make in Marvel Champions. And, once the game has, kind of begun. Really, really cool. A lot of different options there that vary depending on, your deck, the villain, what other players that might be with you. This is also probably a good time to mention I've only played him 1 and 2 player. Now, I got the expansion a few days early. I've played him, I'd say, quite a bit. But yeah, no actual practical 3 and 4 player experience. So, if that's your main player count.
Now, there was a quick kind of discussion on Nelson's Discord. Brant was saying that Cable 4 player didn't feel good to him, that it felt kind of sluggish, I guess, like too much threat on the side schemes, where Journeyman, another deck builder, another highly, kind of up there with like facts and like a lot of gameplay, disagreed with Brant and said, "Oh my God, no! From 3 to 4 players, Cable is phenomenal." So there's a little bit of discussion to be made, and let's focus on Villain Theory, but I just wanted to mention there's a lot of, discussion going on right now as we speak about, how effective Cable is in player size games. And like I said, this, if you're watching this might be way in the future, but right now, player size games in Cable and Domino are quite new to everybody. Like it's literally only been like a week or so of everyone kind of getting to feel these heroes out. So, bear with us here. But my prediction, like I've always said, he's only going to get stronger as the game grows, because we're going to obviously get more player size games. So he can only get stronger. So
try and take everything I say with an extra pinch of salt. But yeah, full recovery, all very good here. But the only problem I really have is after the game has actually started and you finish the setup ability, his alter ego is kind of just blank.
I'm not too disappointed with that, because honestly, that Soldier X ability is it might be the best setup in the whole entire game for a hero right now. That is such a good setup ability. And now you could be saying, well, what about Captain America's shield? What about Thor's hammer? Yeah, those are great setup cards. I'm not denying it. But again, you're helping your whole team with this one setup thing, and it's huge. Okay, let me say this, guys. How many times have you played a game where you just get a busted hand, and that one one round of you just not mulliganing into what you need, it just slows down everything, and then it's like you're trying to climb back in the game because when you have those nice, quick, good mulligan turns or those starting hand turns, it puts you in a good tempo position to start to get the machine going. And Cable is someone that is basically like every single first turn I have, I can get whatever the team needs, I can get it 100% of the time. So I think that's a very strong ability setup, and therefore he doesn't need another special ability on his alter ego. He has Professor. He has some other basic supports you can put in there that can do stuff on his altar. So even if he doesn't have any other thing, once he's used to set up, he has devices that you still benefit in altar. Okay, so I know he's kind of being like, well, I want one more ability, but honestly, that setup that he has is super strong. I can't stress that enough. So I think balance wise, that's good that they didn't give him like another freaking ability, because then he would be not in an S tier anymore. He would be in a freaking like some other tier system that nobody's ever found. Like he'd be in its own unique tier system. Like you would have to I don't know. It just blow your mind. But no, I think that was a design thing. I think they didn't want to make him like freaking beyond Doctor Strange here. But let's keep going.
He's got nothing he can use when he flips down, unless it's other cards which you put into play.
Now I know probably some people are like, man, Descry, you're so far up his, like you're just in love with Cable. Honestly, no, okay, I like I think Cable's cool, but I'm gushing over him just because this freaking hero is good, and I'm trying to stress that in this response. And it's not like I'm like in love with Cable. I want people to understand how good this hero is, because I feel like he started taking a back seat with Domino. And I'm not knocking Domino. I think Domino, I love Domino as well. I'm probably more in love with Domino, to be honest. But I want to stress like how good Cable is.
Gambit is one of the previous heroes that was just released. And his alter ego was fantastic. So this definitely stings a little bit. I was kind of hoping for more. But still really, really cool. People like readying. He readies after he defeats a side team. I definitely like that. So yeah, I like the identity cards for the most part. And what I think we need to talk about next are these side schemes themselves. We've received, I think, 6, and he's got his own signature side scheme. So
yeah, and so far, like the 6 side schemes that we have currently, again, you might be watching this video in the future, and there might be like another 5, 7 more side schemes, but they're all super useful. You could say the Justice one, take out the guards, is not as super useful, but in certain scenarios, like let's take Red Skull, or take where you get the Hydra guys that will deal yourself a face down counter card when you defeat them. Take out the guards counters that, or any scenario where you have threat right at the start and they're not elites. Okay, that's a wonderful card to just knock them all out. So I would say, yes, obviously you're not going to put that card in every scenario you go into, but for those certain scenarios that you do have minions right at your front door, and they could be very annoying with effects that have win defeat effects, that is really strong player size scheme. But yes, you're not going to put it in the majority of the time. But the other ones, again, they all have very good, useful benefits. They're all really good.
We're going to talk about these are the 3 that I think most people are going to want to get in play first. The first one is a signature side scheme, Technovirus Purge. Comes with a flat value of 5 threat, no matter the player count.
Yeah, I just want to say about this, and I think he's going to talk about it, I'm pretty sure. But the trap is new players tend to want to use that with the what's it called again? Let me go back. With Soldier X setup, they tend to be like, oh yeah, let me get my Technovirus Purge. You got to remember, it's a zero cost. Technovirus Purge can come out from your deck or wherever it is through an obligation. But then if you say you use your setup to do that and you like thread it off, you're like, yeah. And you know, and then during the counter step, you get your obligation. Boop, there goes your Technovirus Purge and all your effort. And then you're stuck with trying to get rid of it again. So I think it could be a trap for new players. Like, yes, the +1, and I think we all thought that, like, when it was first revealed, and I even told like Brant or somebody when we were talking about it, I said there's probably something with his obligation that's going to minimize that. I think, in fact, if you go back, I think it was on Nelson's channel. Yes, he archived it, so you can even see was Descry right on this, because I even called it out in front of them. We had like a table discussion about the preview of the box set coming in, and we were talking about Technovirus Purge, and we all said that's unheard of. Like +1 Thorpe, +1 attack, +1 defense for a hero, and you can get this done at the start of the game, like on turn 1. And we're all like, a lot of them were like, that's broken. Like, oh, that's way too good. And I said at the table, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's going to have maybe something like an obligation that will interfere with, that kind of buff or whatever, or maybe the Nemesis or something like that. So, and I was right. So, but not to toot my own horn, but I kind of predicted that. But my point is, that card, you probably want to deal with it if you draw into it, maybe on the next round or sometime within your deck pass. Or better yet, it comes out on obligation, and the obligation gets it for you from your deck. So, but yeah, I think he's going to go into, it's much better to play like these one-cost player side schemes, because his ability pays for the one cost and puts it into play. So you're saving like 2 cards right there, the cost and then putting it into play. So again, yeah, I think initially everybody thought the right play was to get your Techno Purge and then deal with it on turn 1. So I don't believe that's the way you want to play Cable. But let's keep going.
Technovirus Purge comes with a flat value of 5 threat, no matter the player count. The catch is only Cable can remove threat from it, so your allies can't, other players can't. Supports can, because they don't count as characters. But upgrades and events and your basic forwarding are basically the only other things which can contribute.
Heroic Skeleton, I would have to read the obligation again.
One. If you don't draw your signature forwarding card, or you're not playing maybe Justice, or taking one of the rare threat removal cards in the other aspects, this can just be difficult to start with and then get rid of immediately, which means you miss out on your ready on turn 1. Things get.
Yeah, I agree with him. And you always want to shoot for that ready. Like, I think you're playing Cable wrong if you're not always getting his ready activated every turn. Your goal with Cable is to get that ready, because again, that's just amplifying that his ability, but it's giving you tempo towards controlling the villain, basically, when you get that free ready. So
things get kind of stuck. All these player side schemes go into the victory display, and what that does is power up a lot of Cable's cards. So you need to start doing that early, because it can take a while to get enough player side schemes to really make a meaningful difference with his cards. So I don't actually normally start with Technovirus Purge. I think this is a bit of a trap. I think this is kind of the.
So that's awesome that. So he's on the money. Like, reality, he's smart. It's already
quite hard sometimes to find that 5 threat removal on turn 1.
Explaining what I just went over.
Investment. You probably could have played something else, another upgrade, that kind of thing. And yeah, outside of Justice, I think it's pretty tricky in particular. So I actually don't recommend starting with Technovirus Purge most of the time. It does boost your stats, so any decks that really like bigger stats are going to like it. It also gives you the Psionic trait, so Psionic decks are going to like it. But yeah, getting this out and not getting rid of it for a turn or 2 is bad news.
I think, like, for me, I want to get my team set up. And when I'm usually playing with my team or my two-handed myself, I'm usually asking myself, like, okay, how can I help the person I'm teamed up with, or my team that's on the table? And that's sort of how I go about playing cable. Like I usually ask my team like, hey, do you guys prefer an ally? Do you guys want to get set up with a build card? Do you want a support card? Do you want your unique upgrade? And that's sort of how I play
What I
cable.
do like to start with is build support. Um, Cable has a two cost. It's a support. It's a really good resource generator. It's called Grey Malkin. It readies
Yeah,
when you
Grey
defeat a
Malkin
player
is
side team.
amazing. I
We're
love
going
Grey
to cover it
Malkin.
again in a little bit, but
Such a good economy
basically, if
card
you get
for
build support
cable.
defeated on turn one, you're going to be able to generate an extra 1 to 2 resources every.
Okay, let me put it in this perspective. I've done turns where like I've been able to get 4 resources out of Grey Malkin. So let's just quantify that. You have like Captain America where you have to get his serums out. Okay, that's only worth 2. And they're just physicals. Well, it doesn't really matter about the physical part, but most good economy, and he has a good economy. Captain America has a good economy, and there's a lot of other most good economy heroes have usually 2 resource generators in their toolkit. Most good economy heroes, and then some only have 1. But freaking cable, like I've done it many times. I've generated 3, sometimes 4. I think the most I generated was 5 in one turn. So it's freaking awesome. I don't expect to get 5. That was a fluke, but I've done 3 quite frequently. Like if I'm in the zone and I'm doing, if I'm zoning out, I'm one with the cards. Yeah, but yeah, very good support.
Turn. I think it's very
I think people don't. I think people should gush over it a lot more. It's really good.
reliable, and any 3 threat compared to 5, a lot easier to defeat. Really, really like this card. And in multiplayer, you can start to do some awesome things with this. Something
100%,
we've done
100%.
is, the other deck has a heli carrier in it. Now, of course, in 2-player, this will come in with double the threat. It's free per person. But then maybe they'll help chip it down 1 or 2. Fires Cable then finish it off. We both get a support. They will
Also, and I think he might talk about this, but you can sneak in certain supports that are prohibited by you being a certain traded character. If you want a Queen Carrier, well, guess what? Go get a Queen Carrier, even if you're not an Avenger. So you can do some cool shenanigans with build support and some of the other player side cards. Again, and I don't know if people realize how like it's really cool and at the same time kind of scary because like are we breaking the game? But let's keep going.
get a heli carrier, which they can then use even though it's now my turn. Yeah, really, really good card. And then we've got Call for Backup, which gets an ally for free. And whereas Build Support is limited to a support with a cost of 3 or less, Call for Backup has no such limit. Call for Backup, if you've got a 6-cost Hercules in your deck, you can just get your 6-cost Hercules after defeating Call for Backup, which is ridiculous. Some allies I really like for this are Wolverine.
I was gonna say Wolverine. That was the first one that came to my mind. Black Widow. Okay. Let me just. I'm sorry that I'm like pausing him a lot, but I get excited about this. So picture this, right? Okay, say you're a cable player. Damn it, I do not want Shadows of the Past to hit me on turn 1. I do not want to deal with Strife. And say your friend is a protection player, and he has a Black Widow in his deck somewhere. Well, call for backup. Boom, Black Widow comes out from his deck. You guys go, you stroll into the villain phase. Damn it, Shadows of the Past hits. Cable, first turn, Steve from Play the Game type of curse. But guess what? Call for backup with Black Widow. No, not going to happen. Get another card. So it's crazy. Like, people don't understand. These player size games are game changers. And especially, you go into like much more harder modulars, harder villains, harder difficulties. They just amplify how good they are, and the way Cable can, tactically and precisely set things up, and it's very multiplayer team oriented. So again, I'm gushing over this, but like I'm trying to stress how good this is so people understand.
Psylocke, Dazzler, There's so many in leadership, but I think Phantom X is very interesting because he's a new ally that comes in with a support that can help you remove threat. Um, but also Beta Ray Bill, very very good. Protection has multiple man, Iron Fist, very cool.
Say Black
One of my
Widow.
favorites is
No.
just from Basic, which is Nick Fury.
Villain Theory.
You
Come
start
on.
with Call for Backup, defeat it, you can get yourself a Nick Fury on turn one, who's going to draw you 3 more cards probably,
Or
and
Professor
that means you're going to
X.
find more
Get
upgrades
a
or
free
other side schemes,
confuse.
and you can accelerate Cable's slow setup by getting more cards in play. And Nick Fury is going to block for you. He's going to do something on the board as well. So in addition to the card draw, he is still doing some kind of regular ally stuff. So Call for Backup's really interesting. The way I see these is Call for Backup is kind of short-term gain, but it can, especially if you've got other good upgrades in hand you want to try and.
I just want to say, Call for Backup is such a good tempo play, especially if your teammates have put in some very strong allies: Iron Fist, Black Widow, Captain Marvel, multiple man. Yeah, multiple man would get all three. Yeah, it's a player size scheme that will just get way better as the game goes on, because we're gonna get even more powerful allies coming out. And the fact is, some of these allies in the game can have extreme utility, like very good at utility. Say you're going against like a heavy overkill type villain, get Nightcrawler out, because once you got Nightcrawler on the table, you can keep bamfing him constantly every round, put him back in your hand, put him out again, bamf him out. So like, it's just, again, like I saw a bunch of these reviews on Cable, and nobody's really talking how, like, yes, they'll say, oh, this is a really good thing, but it's almost like they're not stressing how good this is. Like, this is really, 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 really good. Yeah. Good with the exclamation mark.
Payful can accelerate setup for the long game, so it is interesting. Build support just gets you your Grey Malkin support resource generator. So I mean, that is phenomenal. Technovirus Purge, I think, is a bit of a trap, partially because of the obligation that Cable has.
So I totally 100% agree with them. Do not play it on turn one, guys.
Technovirus Purge has been defeated.
If that's your only option.
Technovirus Resurgence puts it back into play with an acceleration token, which is pretty nasty. Especially if you've dedicated, a lot.
So I think we had Heroic Skeleton ask, what if you had Techno Purge in your hand? Well, it says search your deck, discard pile, or hand. So it would come literally out of your hand and go into play with that on it.
Of your opening turn to it, and you get this early on, it's really, really going to set you back. Especially if you've got a Psionic, card-based deck, which is tricky. But overall,
again, I think, guys, the developers are very smart, and I agree with them 100% with the Nemesis set, with the obligation, because if you didn't give Cable some really negative stuff kind of in there, and again, they were really smart because they gave you tools to try to combat that stuff. It would really suck if they didn't give you the Future Leap card, or the Shield card, or to look in the counter deck and discard a card and arrange it to your liking. If they didn't give you all those tools, yes, I get the point. That's frustrating to lose a game to a Mind Scan or a Blast from Strife or whatever. But there's ways, like I said, and I don't want to get into another rabbit trail, but you have to. I'm only sad. I wish they would have did a little bit more of that with Doctor Strange. But I think Doctor Strange was too early in the game cycle for them to balance Doctor Strange. I think they were really learning. Like, I mean, if you look at when they released Thor and Hulk and then Doctor Strange, or I don't know if I got the order right, but they were trying to feel at that time. There wasn't a lot, like, we were coming just after the core set into Red Skull, and I think their caliber of development and the way they do heroes now and villains and counter sets is so much higher, and their knowledge of game balance has gotten way better. And especially bringing in Tony, mechanically, I think they're getting a lot more interesting now with Tony, and he's also very knowledgeable. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that I know people are complaining about the negative parts of Cable, but really it's a stroke of genius because they had to counterbalance him within the game, and it's for the player to try to dance around and counter what the mini games and the threats that Cable has. The thing is, if you didn't give him those things, he's just a super overpowered hero like Doctor Strange or even worse. Okay, so I'm trying to make people understand that point of view because I know there's a lot of negativity about his Shadows of the Past and his obligation, but you got to factor in this guy is very, very strong. And again, I think there's a balancing act. You know, you don't want to make Marvel Champions way too easy. And I think that was like one of the main complaints with Doctor Strange with people that no, I don't want to play Doctor Strange because it's like going into cheat mode. I will say this though, you know, if you go with very hard modulars, harder difficulty setting, harder villains, Doctor Strange can struggle. I think people have mythically put him into this like god tier position, and the game has evolved so much. We have teamwork, we have a lot of retaliate, piercing. Yes, Doctor Strange is still a beast. I'm not for 1 minute saying, you know, he's not super good and but what I'm trying to say is people are still having fantasies and you know, like the honeymoon thing with the power level of Doctor Strange, where in reality, I think he's sort of like he's always been high up on the ladder, but he hasn't been going any higher, basically. And only the other heroes have been creeping up to him slowly because their synergies are getting more buffed with the aspect cards and everything that we're getting. Whereas Doctor Strange, his obligation, or sorry, his his vocation. All right, yeah, go get your cocoa. Okay, that was Joshy. Okay, I'm talking a lot, but my main point is, um, in the early life of Marvel Champions, I believe that the developers didn't quite know how to balance the power level and then balancing that power level with the mechanisms with Shadows of the Past and their obligation. I think they've improved a lot. I think the heroes that they release now, they're looking to see, you know, how strong this hero is, and then trying to do the mathematical gymnastics to counterbalance. And you saw that with Tony's expansion with the campaign cards. You know, putting in certain minions and treacheries to try to counterbalance those environments and safe house and whatnot. But that's another topic. I think safe house is a little bit too strong for multiplayer, but that's a whole different meat and potatoes talk right there. But let's keep going.
Really cool options here. I really like these. I think most games will start with one of these, especially at solo. At 2 player, at the bottom right here, we have superpower training, which I think is another strong option. Cable doesn't have any, I would say, upgrades that are super essential to, try and get out turn one, to put this over the other options we've looked at. But other players might, and if other players do have, Ant-Man's helmet, things like that, making sure they can get that early is going to be vital. I would say Cable's best upgrade is Plasma Rifle, which we're going to look at soon. And what's really cool as a weapon and an upgrade,
Yeah, the plasma
both
rifle is
Lock and
really
Load
good.
here and Superpower Training can find it. So you can do some interesting things, depending on which one of these you find first. You can use either of them to get that Plasma Rifle in play. And in solo play especially, I found...
Yeah, just a good call out. Even running some sidearms, basic upgrade with Cable, you can take advantage of lock and loaded. Like, say you get your plasma gun out early by chance, you can grab some sidearms. And especially if you're playing Next Evolution, there is a buttload of Retaliate. There is like people are in love with Retaliate on that expansion box. So sidearms are definitely going to be worth it. But you can take advantage of sidearms with lock and loaded.
found that very, 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 very useful. Um,
Or if you're running like you know, justice aggression, you can get a hand cannon or a sonic rifle. So yeah, there's other really good upgrades. Yep.
Perimeter is good. Both Established Perimeter and Lock and Load have 2 threat per person, which makes them a lot easier to remove. Um, Lock and Load, not so good if, multiplayer and your other players don't have weapons. So but in solo play, I'm always taking it, and I'm usually taking a second weapon in addition to the Plasma Rifle Cable gets, just to make sure it can hit something if Plasma Rifle is already in play. And Plasma Rifle is one of those cards that powers up as you get side schemes into the victory.
Another thing I will say this, because we're talking about Plasma Rifle, or he's talking about Plasma Rifle. What's really nice is a lot of times in Marvel Champions, you're doing this dance of trying to build, trying to control, and a lot of times when you're trying to do those two things, you don't have the luxury to do damage, right? Because you're spending your resources to control threat, maybe try to deal with the minion, but you're not touching the villain. What's really nice about getting his plasma gun out, while you're trying to do those things, a lot of times you have the luxury of, oh, guess what? I'll just exhaust my plasma gun and do 4 damage to the villain. The fact is, these like 4 damage here, next round 4 damage again, it adds up in the long run, and it puts you in a good position that all of a sudden you see the villains approaching single digits, and you get them down to like 2 or 1, and then you can go for an easy OTK, 1 turn kill, which in a lot of scenarios, that's the best approach because you don't have to deal with the villain's tempo, multiple encounter cards being given to you when you flip them, stuff like that. So I think that's a thing that even people like Villain Theory don't even discuss. But a little note there, like you can do passive damage basically once you've got your plasma out, and 4 damage once you get 4 side personal side schemes, which isn't hard. That 4 damage, it adds up after a while. And if you even want to go a little bit more, throw in a sharpshooter, but that's kind of maybe iffy because Domino seems to be like, the best hero to run that card. But then there's also his Scimitar. But in Next Evolution, I'm not over the moon with that card, even though it's fantastic. It does 2 damage when you play a psionic card because it has the attack keyword. Because there's a lot of retaliate in Next Evolution. So what you're going to find is a lot of times you don't want to hit him with your Scimitar. But you could take a stun off with it. So, it's useful. Anyways, let's keep going.
Wait. Sometimes on turn 1, if I don't have any threat removal in my hand for whatever reason, you can get unlucky and not find any extra. Sometimes I'll just go for one of the 2 threat per person cards, make sure I can clear it on turn 1. If I've only got one side scheme in the victory display, Plasma Rifle isn't doing much damage, I might prefer to grab, say, Sonic Rifle or Hand Cannon. So you've got kind of interesting choices to make there as well. And that also, if you don't have other threat removal, to make sure you can defeat one of these other cards on turn 1. Lock and load, and then, establish perimeter, I would say, in multiplayer if someone else doesn't have a weapon, also become, valid starting choices. So all 6 of these cards are very interesting. I think they did a really good job with the player side schemes and how they interact with Cable. The last one is Take Out the Guards. It's 0 cost, which is, equal in cheapness to his signature side scheme, joint cheapest, but it takes 4 threat per person to remove. And what it does is discard a minion in play. So where the other side schemes are really reliable, you're always going to get a bonus. For this one, you need an equal amount of minions to the players to really get full value. And the problem is with Cable, especially in these lower player counts, which I've mostly played and I'm talking about, I'm putting down a side scheme and I'm wanting to defeat it immediately to try and start to power up. There's no minion in play. What do? Do I just, sink full threat removal into this and not get the when defeated bonus? Or do I leave it out and stop myself defeating it, slow down, maybe block myself putting other side schemes out? I should mention in 1 and 2 player, you can only have 1 player side scheme out at a time. And in 3 and 4...
All right, so we're going to fast forward just a little bit because, we sort of talked about Take Out the Guards sort of at the start. And yeah, he's pretty much kind of saying a little bit what I'm saying. Let's jump to this, which...
What's not out yet, but I think it's going to be very relevant.
All right, so what he's saying basically, this is a future player side scheme coming out. And as you can know, this looks really strong, especially if you're playing for a longer type game, not a rush game. These cards are going to pay off so much, and they supercharge the heroes at the table, basically. So it's called Specialized Training. So let's hear what he has to say about it.
And so is worth talking about is Specialized Training. This has been officially previewed with X23 when she comes out.
And I'm just going to say something, guys. If you do not like player size schemes, I'm sorry. they're here to stay because yeah, their Fantasy Flight is if they were testing the waters with people, they wouldn't have not released this card. No, they're a firm believer of player size games. Now, it'd be interesting if they do something for the villain, which I hope they do. I hope they do a mechanism or some type of mechanic where it's a counter to player size games, but not like to a point you can't do the player size game meta, but just something there that will make it more difficult or more cumbersome to just go all out player size game strategy. But let's keep going.
Super cool card. What you do is you set the all these upgrades below aside at the start of the game, kind of thing. And then once you defeat specialized training, you get to look at those set aside upgrades and choose one to come into play. And basically, they break down to +1 to a stat.
Can I just say something? I love the art. I sometimes I just like look at the cards for like 2 minutes, just like staring at the art. I love the art in this game. I mean, it's not super realistic, but it's like some of the art is so cool, and I love comics and I love the Marvel universe, and I like it. The majority of the art is awesome in the game, and I just want to make that comment out there that I like the art.
And card draw every turn, which is very, very good. There's a plus hit point one, which has some issues, and Cable definitely with 12 hit points isn't.
And don't worry, we're gonna get to the disagreements. It's coming, so just hang in there, because I know you're probably thinking, Descry, all you're doing is gushing over Cable, just talking about stuff about Cable. I don't hear you even responding to villain theory. Okay, he hasn't really gotten to his opinions quite a bit yet.
Really looking for that anyway, in my opinion. But yeah, the threat removal one or the damage one, I think are both going to be great for him. In solo play, you can often just remove a side scheme with a forwarding card. You can do something like attack with the +1, use a forwarding card to defeat a side scheme, ready up because it was, Cable playing the event, you get the ready, then you can attack again with +1. So even if you're playing something like Justice or Protection, you can start to get really good damage from Combat Specialist. And of course, the +1 forwarding, I think, speaks to himself, for itself when he needs to defeat all these side schemes. The downside with the side schemes is your Nemesis set. So,
all right, so we're going to hear what he has to say about this. But remember, I kind of went into why I think the Nemesis makes sense and why his obligation makes sense because of how strong Cable is and what he brings to the table with the team. I believe that this was proper balancing from the developers, and I'm on the developer side with what they did with the Cable set here. But let's hear what Villain Theory thinks. I don't know if he's going to go into that type of depth what I'm talking about. Maybe he's just going at it like a power perspective, like, oh, this hampers Cable and the power on my power scale. But my point is, I think it's required because if you don't have this type of level of counterbalancing, then you get another Doctor Strange, and we all know the community doesn't like how powerful Doctor Strange is. If we're being honest, a lot of us would be more than happy if the Fantasy Flight said, okay, we're going to kind of tailor Doctor Strange a little bit to not make him so uber powerful, and we'll make Hulk a little more powerful and Valkyrie a little bit better, or whatever. I'm sure everybody would agree with that. I don't think anyone's saying don't nerf Doctor Strange or don't change anything with Doctor Strange. I think that one of the major reasons with Doctor Strange, people don't even like to play him because he's just so good. But again, I think if you up the difficulty and yada yada yada, Doctor Strange is not this mythical tier god that everyone likes to talk about. I think he has some weaknesses, but yes, he's still super strong. But let's
top center, we've got Mind Scan and Telekinetic Blast, which are parodies of your own events.
And just a fun fact, I don't know if Late Night Game is watching, or if you do happen to watch this part of the video. They played a game where he was playing with I think Steel or another one of his teammates. They were literally going to beat the scenario 1 of Next Evolution. They sort of had it in the bag, but they got Mind Scan as a treachery. It just exploded, and they lost to Threat. And Yeah, it was a sad time for them, but it's real. Like this is a nasty treachery. But again, the player needs to be aware. Is it in the discard pile? Should if both of us are in alter ego, damn, that might be cutting it close. So these are all things that a player can dance around or, make good tactical decisions and be aware. Late night game is in the yes, okay. The celebrity has arrived. So we got one of the content creators in the Descry response. So I'm just gonna example, like literally I saw them lose the game and they were doing really well and they had it in the bag and then Mindscan came and wrecked their day.
They're scary as heck because for every side scheme in the victory display, they do +1, to either adding threat or dealing damage to you, respectively. They can just, wipe out the main scheme or destroy you in one go. For context, I normally have.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty scary when you have like 6 player size schemes in there, and then you're getting threat for 8. Yeah, that is freaking scary. But like I said, there are some countermeasures, like this future leap upgrade, that can kind of save your bacon if you don't have a Black Widow or don't have some type of countermeasure. But
I would say 4 to 6 side schemes in the victory display by the late game. So late game, potentially adding 8 threat to the main scheme or dealing 8 damage to you, which is horrifying. And it can even.
Yeah, but again, Telekinetic Blast, again, you have your shield upgrade that will just nullify the damage. But again, now you have to be in hero to proc those 2 upgrades that I mentioned. So, but again, guys, Cable is very strong. You can't make him like I think people get this idea like, I want this card to work also in this way and this way. You can't eat your cake and enjoy it too, or something. I don't know the wording, but you understand what I'm saying. There's got to be some weaknesses to Cable, okay? Because if they don't, we have another Doctor Strange, and as the community knows, nobody wants another Doctor Strange, okay? It's cool that we have this super powerful Doctor Strange hero, and we can always tier list it and compare it to Doctor Strange, but I don't think we want a second Doctor Strange, okay?
B7, +7, which is very, 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 very scary. So early game, these aren't too bad. They're still not great. Adding 3 threat to the main scheme can tip you over in solo quite often, but I would say taking 3 damage out of the blue.
Oh, I just want to make one more comment, and I agree with him 100%. These are not to be taken lightly, and late night gaming is a good. I think he's learned his lesson, but he wasn't playing Cable. His friend was. What I was gonna say is that if you play in a team game and the Cable player is either didn't have enough sleep that night or is half awake, what I'm trying to say is you want someone that's focused and playing Cable because, again, he's got weaknesses. If you're not on top of your ball of piloting Cable, you can end up losing it for your team, right? So you got to be a smart Cable player, understand his weaknesses, the treacheries, have a game plan. If this comes out, he's going to mention Back to the Future and Strife and how it's really difficult to deal with. But like I said, you have to be knowledgeable and use the tools that you can to get out of these jams. If you're playing Cable and you're kind of oblivious to these things, you might lose the game for your team in that regard. So don't be one of those people, because then you're going to get looked on and then nobody will want you to play Cable at the table ever again. But let's keep going.
Can be pretty scary as well. So definitely something to watch out for. Really, really brutal. But I do think his Nemesis set is one of the most fun sets in the game.
Yes,
Strife
very
is
thematic.
his Nemesis villain, and he blocks Sonic events for the most part and has villainous. So what that means is now your attack card, Telekinetic Blast, which we're going to cover, kind of doesn't work anymore.
But you know what's funny though? Yes, it is pretty bad when he cancels your Psionic event. What's cool is at least you get to do 1 damage. Now I had Shadows turn 1 going into Juggernaut Standard 2 Expert, and I only could do 4 damage with Phantom X, a basic attack, and EVA. So I had to do 1 more damage. I was stunned. So I literally play a Mind Scan, 2 costs, and I was able to ping him off and kill Strife. So in some way, I mean, yes, it's laughable one damage, but that might be the key factor to delete him. You know, that one damage that you have to do. But in my case, it was just enough to get him out of here on turn one by myself. So
It will do 1 damage instead of 6 to 12, depending on how many side schemes you defeated. Which means early game, Strife is difficult to deal with. Your attack card doesn't work against him. Plasma Rifle can deal up to 4 damage, but
he's talking. I believe your basic does work, but he's talking about the event card. Yeah, that's what he's talking about when he meant. That's what he meant to say, right?
time to charge up. So late game, Strife isn't a problem. Early game, when you're not got any good real sources of damage, he can be very very tricky and really throw a spanner in the works. I do think allies are good for Cable because he starts slow, doesn't have that much damage to begin with. He wants to keep putting his threat removal in these side schemes.
I just want to make one comment here. The developer should never have a nemesis set where you're rejoicing like you just won the lottery, or you're set for life, whatever. Like when you play, a good example is Spider Woman or Wasp. Or Wasp is probably the best one, but Spider Woman's up there too. Those Shadows of the Past nemesis sets are so laughable. Like Wasp, you get this beetle comes in, it's a one attack, one scheme, and the funny part, you kill beetle, it gives you a choice. Do you want to discard it? Oh, you pay a resource to do that, or do you want to shuffle it back in the counter deck? Hell yeah, let me shuffle her back in the counter deck. I thought it would cost you a resource to shuffle her back for being such a bad encounter card. And then her upgrade just gives her like a little bit more health. And then her event, her treachery events are, she just activates with like a couple more attack, a boost of an attack, which is nothing. So when I play Wasp, I get Shadows of the Past. I'm literally celebrating like I just like my team just won the Stanley Cup or something. And the game should never be like that. Like the Shadow of the Past should represent the dread, the hair standing on its end on the back of your neck. Like, oh my God, Shadows of the Past, and then have the Steve moment and get frustrated and and that's what Shadow of the Past is meant to be in this game. And there's some heroes that is like it's the opposite feeling. And I think that's just maybe they missed it in game design. I think the shadows should always be a little bit bad, but at different levels of badness depending how strong that hero you made them to be. And that's where I think Doctor Strange should have had a really bad shadows, like really bad, very difficult, really affect his invocation deck in some way. But again, I think the problem was that was in the early days, and they were really testing the water and figuring out what things were working with the community that plays the game. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I think, and I'm hoping, like with Tony and the developers now, I think they understand what Shadows of the Past should be for most heroes and how it should be balanced and whatnot. But it is true when you go through the hero roster, it's so weird how like you go to Hulk and you're like, okay, Hulk is kind of subpar a bit here. And then his shadows is really difficult. Like it's extremely annoying. And you're like, okay. And then you go to Wasp or Spider Woman, and it's like the totally opposite. Like you're getting hit by like a 2-year-old, and you're in a boxing ring with, and it's like, oh yeah, this is really nice. So, anyways, I don't know. I just wanted to comment about Shadows of the Past because I think it's a funny topic to bring up. I don't think going forward in the future we're gonna get bad design from Shadows of the Past. Hopefully not. But looking at Domino and Cable, I like the way that they've done those shadows, and for the most part all the X-Men. But let's keep going.
Allies can kind of cover for that, and they can hit Strife. And then you've got Force Field, Telekinetic Force Field. nothing to, that important there. That's the easy card here. His side scheme is really, really.
And I just want to say, and this ties into what he's going to go into. Um, when they tie the thematic part of the Shadows set to the hero, and when they nail that, it's just so beautiful to see. And they knock it out of the park with the thematic part with Cable, the Back to the Future to Strife, and what he, if you're into the comics, all this makes sense, and it just gels so well thematically. I think they just hit a home run with this, and I love it when they're able to capture that in the Shadows, and then they tie that into game balance and everything. And this is why I get so excited about the game, and when I see great design and level design and hero design. But I'm really into, like, for me, what gets me excited is the mechanics, the theme, just how everything works. And again, I think they did a really good job. Although some players, might disagree and complain that it's too, it's too much, it's too, bad. But let's hear Villain Theory out.
Unique, and this is my favorite thing about his Nemesis set. It basically works like Kang Stage 2.
Yeah, I would just say late night gaming. I agree with you. It makes you use Cable's toolkit to the full degree, 100%.
Kang, you get sent into a different time. Here you're sent back to the future. Now you can only thwart the scheme and only hit minions engaged with you, and other players can't help either. So you're really isolated in multiplayer, which is really fun, if scary. But yeah, really thematic mod set. I think everything, in terms of theme, hits really well. They're interesting, but kind of, I don't want to say too brutal, but definitely one of the harder Nemesis sets.
Yeah, so he's right. It is very hard, but what I'm trying to make my case in, I believe it's justified, because you have a hero that is almost Doctor Strange level powerness. So you need to, if they would have done it properly with Doctor Strange and made it kind of like Cable, I don't think everybody would be like, Doctor Strange is the untouchable mythic legend that he is on the tier list. But because they failed in that, it's sort of like, a meme now, like how good Doctor Strange is. And, when you lose, like after the 5th time, you're like, okay, time to bust out Doctor Strange. All right, let's keep going.
Now we're going to get into the ranking and talk about some of Cable's specific cards and how they have, unfolded during my personal experience playing Cable. Starting off with damage. So for damage...
All right, guys, this is the meat and potatoes. Gear up. This is what you came for. Response onto the ratings here.
You have Telekinetic Blast, which I've talked about. 6 damage.
So I believe his star ranking is out of 5 stars. So it's 1 out of 5 or 0 out of 5, I guess. I assume that's his total for his ranking. But he's got him at a 3 star. So I believe that would be like good, not super great, not the best, not bad, not terrible. It's sort of in the middle there. But let's hear what he has to say.
+1 per side scheme in the victory display. But it starts off very expensive, and for its cost, if I'm playing this with a hand of let's say 5 cards in hero form, I lose this card because I'm choosing to play it. I then have to spend 3, so it's 4 effective resources for 6 damage, potentially on turn 1. And even with a couple of side schemes, it's only equaling swinging web kick, which I think is, these days, by modern standards, it's good damage, but it's quite inflexible. It's one big chunk. You're mostly going to use it on the villain or one of those, semi-rare, large, high HP minions. So yeah, and there's only 2 copies, so it's good to end games with. Once it's built up, it can do, 12 plus damage, extremely strong. But early game, very weak. Not many copies of it, not reliable in my opinion. Plasma Rifle, on the other hand, I underestimated early on, but I have ended up loving it in gameplay. This is one of my top priorities on Cable now, every single game. First game we ever played with Cable and Domino, the new...
So I just want to get his whole thought through before I start making comments on damage, okay?
Heroes from Next Evolution. I got Lock and Load, the aggression side scheme out on turn 2, I think it was. defeated it, and suddenly we had guns. I had this image, he's like raiding an armory, throws a pistol, Domino catches it, and we immediately used both of our weapons to take out our minion together. It felt so awesome.
See, Villain Theory, when he plays Marvel Champions, he's thematically recreating stuff in his head. Because one question I said, do people, when they play Marvel Champions, do they just get a bunch of numbers like 2 damage, 5 damage? Or do they picture a swinging web kick or a plasma rifle blast? So right now he's talking about he's thematically picturing it like in the actual playing of the cards.
Awesome. It felt, really, really good. So a lot of cool experiences. Plasma rifle,
which I encourage people to use their imagination. Yeah, it's much more funner when you play Marvel Champions and you're literally picturing yourself doing these like cool Marvel hero stuff.
I think is very reliable. Starts off only doing a little bit of damage, but by the later game, even the mid game, you're spending 1 energy to deal 4 damage, which is an incredibly efficient ratio. So yeah, I set his damage at 3. By the late game, you could say it's even a 4 or a 5. But starting at turn 1, probably more of a 2, 1 to 2 stars. If I'm honest, so kind of difficult to rank that.
So let's talk a little bit about this. So I think this is one of his a little bit of a hurdle for him with the way he's trying to bring this information to you guys, because I'm a little confused. Like, okay, so you're saying late game he's a 4 or 5, the beginning game he's a 1, but how are you quantifying this? Like, you got him at 3 damage, so I guess you're taking late game, early game, mid game, and mushing them together, and that's how you got a 3. I guess that's how he came to 3, because he's sort of oxymoron or contradicting himself, because he just said in one sentence he has unbelievable damage 4 or 5 late game. He has miserable damage 1. Yes, I understand. It how Cable works is he doesn't have that damage at the start. Most heroes don't. Obviously, Cable's not a rush hero. So and this is the part where I think is challenging, because when you do these tier lists or rankings or reviews, you could do them in many different ways. Like, are we talking about I'm going to review a rush down strategy, rush down hero. Okay, and that damage or that the way you play them or the way you would look at their stats or whatnot is totally different, because you're going for a certain strategy. You're going for as much damage as possible, as quick as possible, as fast as possible. So so these are things that it's tricky when we get into these tier lists, and don't even mention when you, this is a solo tier list. I don't even like the solo tier list. I'm not a big fan of solo tier lists. But that's a whole different, I don't even want to get into that right now. But he's got him at a 3. But again, I think it's weird, because it's like most games you're playing a later game. You're trying to control, get yourself stabilized, build up. So most games are going too late. And now, is the damage reflecting how much you could do to a villain, or is it reflecting how much you do to a minion? Like, I'm not sure, what his damage really represents in that regard. So again, overall, I might have maybe put him at a 4. And if I'm going with his way of thinking, like, yeah, he doesn't do that much damage at the start. He scales super high late game for value and damage. I agree with what he was saying in those points, but it's just hard to quantify in this regard. Like, okay, 3 damage, and then, but it's like, it's kind of contradicting. Like, okay, start of the game, no damage, mid game, decent, late game, extreme damage. He's a 3. Okay. I guess if you're talking in that sense, I agree with him, but it's just hard. It's weird because, like, I look at Star-Lord, right? I'm giving you guys an example because maybe you guys are like, Descry, I still don't understand what you're saying. Star-Lord, at the start of the game, you could say he's a 1 damage. Well, no, sorry, I correct that. If you're doing a rush play with Star-Lord, his damage is actually higher. But what I'm trying to say is it's not a 5 or a 4, I don't believe. like right off the bat. There's a lot of, you have to get his guns out. You got to get a nice hand size and get the combo going. When you get it properly done, like I've done a Star on my stream, I've done a Star Lord leadership where I get Gamora out, I get my guns out, I get a big hand size, and then I do like Blaze of Glory, and I abuse Gamora to draw me lots of cards, and we fill the encounter board with all these encounter face down encounter cards, and I'm not joking. I'm not trying to downplay this. I literally can do. We're talking 50 damage, 60. There's one time I did like basically 70 damage. Okay, so if I'm telling you, I literally did 70 damage with Star Lord, and it's not like this is after just one deck pass. So I'm going into deck pass. I do one whole deck pass, and then I'm into deck pass 2, and I'm doing 70 damage at the end of my near the end of my deck pass. So you know that is freaking beyond the 5-star chart that he has, right? I mean 70, like 50, 60 damage, Star Lord leadership, but I can't do that on turn 1. Okay, so it's hard for me to kind of the way that we're talking about damage and his thing, it's confusing because depending how you play Marvel Champions, you like how, okay, you tell me, where would you classify Star-Lord's damage? Are you going to put him at a 5? And is that at the start of the game? Is that mid game, or is that when you get the pieces all set up like I explained? So these are things I think it's kind of hard to respond in because we could be talking about different ways, but I'm glad he mentioned start, mid, late game, and that made sense to me. But I probably would have gone maybe a 4, like if we're taking into consider everything, because it doesn't take a lot of time to get a few player size schemes in there in the victory display. So think about this. You get 4 quite quickly. You're doing 4 damage plasma rifle. Your basic, if you have Techno Virus Purge done, you're doing 3 more. So that's 5, 6, 7. That's 7 damage right there just from a hero. And that's just with your basic and one of your toolkit cards that's on the playmat, 7. So you tell me, how many heroes can do 7 just basic exhausts with an upgrade out there on in Marvel Champions? Not many. In fact, very little. I mean, okay, yes, there's Drax and like when you get all his counters and all that, but in most part, it's not a whole huge roster that can do that type of just raw easy damage just by exhausting plasma rifle. Anyways, that was a long kind of thing, but I figured the damage part is a big topic for heroes, and I figured I needed to kind of go kind of in depth in there. For the most part, I agree with him, but I probably would put 4 if we're using his scale system, probably a 4-star for me.
Overall, but I've gone for 3. I think most people will think, yeah, his damage is all right, but he can have problems with minions, especially because you're wanting to dedicate so many resources to finding, playing, and defeating side schemes. Doesn't leave you a lot of room to maneuver sometimes.
Yeah, James, it's been a
starts with
roller coaster of emotions.
Floor, Radioactive Man. I think he had like 7 health. Was out there turn 1. That was a big problem when I was trying to set up Cable. But yeah, overall damage is fine. Gets really good in the late game. Threat removal is really good. I could arguably put this at 5 stars, but Mind Scan does start off weak.
Yeah, I agree with the 4
putting a lot of that
with
threat
him.
removal towards threat you've introduced with player side schemes, but definitely for solo, I don't think threat is
he has 3 mind scans, so he has more thwart than the actual attack. He has 2 blast events, and he has I'm glad you put that up there, Akani's Sun, which again is really awesome. And if you can measure up your side schemes going into the villain phase, you get basically a free ready, so a defensive 3 if you've got Purge out, and then you defeat that a side scheme and you're ready, and you can proc your team leader or whatever skill investigator.
Problem for Cable. I think the issue is trying to set up quick enough and keep everything, maybe minions and different things under control to begin with.
But I will say though, again, late game Cable, you are the man to remove. He's even better than a fully 10 counter Groot Justice. Groot can do, if Groot gets 10 counters, he can remove 10 threat, right? With his I Am Groot event threat card or thwart card. Cable just kind of be like, hold my beer, Groot, and be like, well, that was pretty nice, but you know, let me just do a whole bunch. Let me do 10 just for 2 costs, better than you. Anyways, let's keep
very happy
going.
with his threat removal. He readies when he defeats a side scheme. 3 copies of Mind Scan, which, yeah, it starts we get strong. Ascani-san, and apologies, I had to take this picture. Same with the Nemesis set, because I couldn't find a good one.
Shame on you. Shame on you. I do not accept your photo picture. You're a bigger channel. Come on now. No, I'm just joking.
When you defend
I love Villain Theory.
Energy, remove threat equal to your hero thwarting. This can be really good, but I find the timing quite difficult. Personally, in 1 and 2 player, I'm playing the side scheme. I want to defeat it that turn. That is high priority for me. You know, protection especially. But other aspects can like this. It can be a really good card. It is just not as consistent, you know, and smooth in timing as I would always like. But I do like it. Up next is survivability, and he's got.
And don't get mad at me. He's the guy. He's the one with the bazillion rap sheet of different attributes. Okay, so you guys like pain and suffering. You guys are here for it all. So just sit and wait your turn, and we're going through this. Okay. Yes, you could have made it 3 or 4 sort of simplified things, but this is Villain Theory. So sit down, relax.
12 hit points, 4 recovery.
Tony Tails 2.0.
He's got this force field card, which helps him block damage, and then body slide to easily go alter ego, recover, and still end in hero form. Very, very useful. You can even use.
I just want to make a comment. Survivability, I think, well worth a 4 based on his grading. With that card, telekinetic force field. More importantly, becomes a 3 defense hero. There's not every hero in the game is 3 defense, right? So he can get 3 defense quite easy with getting out Techno Virus Purge. And then you have precognition that you can even see what's coming your way, like you can kind of plan for it or know the boosts. But yeah, he's got high health HP. He's 12, starts out. Body slide can give him back if you really need a recover, and he recovers for 4. Or you could even build him to do more things in Ultra. Give him a downtime if you really want to just abuse the body slide to get a recovery, or just run crew quarters. But yeah, I like his rating for survivability.
An upcoming card will cover under control to manipulate the encounter deck, which can soften attacks or even stop extra attacks coming out, which is useful. Telekinetic Force Field is basically a tough card. It is overpriced for that.
It's better than a tough card because you can protect your team, and that's kind of a theme with him. He's very, like I said, support S tier hero, not just with the player size schemes, but you can use some of your toolkit to even protect some of your more vulnerable teammates, because this one says friendly characters, so it could be literally even an ally. Say for some reason the Black Widow ally on the table is somehow going to be targeted, and you really need Black Widow to stay alive in order to avoid a dark dealings or an advance. Sorry, I'm using standard 2 verbiage, which probably half the community doesn't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so like I said, he's great in that regard,
in my opinion. But it's very flexible because you can use it on other players, which is actually has been useful for me, and even on specific allies that you might need to keep in play because of.
I swear I did not even I didn't know he was gonna say that. It's funny because I literally, yeah, it's 2 minds think alike. All right.
Of scenario objectives, which is cool. So very cool card. I should say a lot of these cards we've looked at have.
It's funny, when I did a response video of Josh, I could not find anything I wanted to. I could not find a disagreement with Josh, barely. I think I had maybe one or two minor disagreements with Josh from Get Up and Game. And then even someone commented like, "Oh man, your response video, you pretty much just agreed with everything with Josh." I was like, "Yeah, I pretty much did." Um, but then I do like a D20, and I'm like disagreeing like everything that comes out of D20's mouth about Valkyrie, and it's like, oh, okay. And yeah, but don't worry, me and D20 are still friends. But I love his streams. He's awesome. Anyways, let's keep going. I just think it's funny that he literally said what I was thinking. But
the Sonic and Superpower trait. Sonic trait is, my playstyle. I've not been so keen on Technovirus Purge to get Sonic on my hero, so team building exercise hasn't been such a great option. But I've run Def Focus quite a bit. I really like that. Don't always use Def Focus every turn, but it is quite meaningful on the cards you do use it on, and Kinetic Force Field is very useful. One of the best uses for this card is your Treachery from your Nemesis set that can just destroy you.
100%.
This is a counter. If I've got my Nemesis set in the encounter deck, this card shoots up in priority. So yeah, some pretty cool stuff from Cable. He's pretty hard to take down. Soaking attacks and maybe minion hits on his hit points is something I like to do early. I think that really helps him get space to set up and then deal with them. Yeah, really cool. Economy, I think, is actually good. I sometimes don't think it feels good to people because you've got to play all these side schemes and then try and defeat them and then deal with stuff. But Grey Malkin is kind of my top priority on Cable.
And to try to do D20 impersonation, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I know when I watch his stream, he does he says that exact line. Grey Malkin, love it, love it, love it. Very good card, guys. That is like your Ant-Man's helmet. It's really good. Get that out ASAP, and off to the races you go with Cable.
Generates a resource. If I defeat a side scheme, it's generating 2. It is not capped. Cable readies up once.
That was a very bad impression of D20, by the way, but let's keep going.
Per phase. I should say Ascani-san does help with readying up in the villain phase. Really like the amount of resources I get from this almost all the time. Very, very effective. And then we have Professor, which is just card draw in Alter Ego, unless you choose to search your deck and discard pile for a side scheme, which gives you so much choice and power over what's going on, This is one of the
utility.
The guards as a side scheme. If there's a minion out, grab it, put this in play, and you can use it to help.
Right, exactly. Say you're in that scenario where maybe there's certain mechanisms that bring out a bunch of minions that are not elite. Use Professor to take out the guards. Boom. There's and you can go through your discard pile. So and the fact is it allows you even to draw cards. Say if you don't want to get another player size game out there, or you can't, you could just draw a card. So very, very awesome. I love Professor.
You can really make a decision based on what's in your hand, whether you can defeat a side scheme, whether you need short or long-term gain, about what you grab from Professor. Really, really cool choice.
Oh, okay. Someone said, James says, and off to the races is a frequent Nelson phrase. You know what I catch from Nelson a lot? Cool. I don't know if you've ever said, he says, he does that. He's like, cool. Like he'll do a combo and be like, cool. Again, probably a really bad Nelson impression, but again, I love those guys. I'm definitely a stalker when it comes to watching their content. And Nelson's awesome. Let's keep going. And I just love these content creators, man. They're let's keep going. I don't want to go into a rabbit trail.
I'd say more resource generation on average than most heroes, but it's not pushing you up to that upper boundary, and it is kind of dependent on the side scheme being in play, which I haven't had a problem with. But yeah, it's again if you don't have Grey Malkin in play, he might feel a little bit poorer than you would like. Next up, we have Control, which I've given to...
All right, so I just want to make a comment on Economy. Yes, I would say he does not have any economy weaknesses whatsoever, Cable. He's got the draw, he's got the utility. Grey Malkin, like I said, there's turns where you can get it activated 3, sometimes 4 times. My highest turn was 5 times. Yeah, there's a lot of side schemes out. But when you play certain scenarios or you do one way or the other, player side scheme, you can see how you can easily kind of stack a lot of those activations. And sometimes the counter set gives you, and I'm not joking, sometimes you get 3 side schemes that come out on a counter phase. That's if you're playing multiplayer, right? So, it's not far-fetched to think you can't, and especially I was running a leadership tribal X-Force deck with lots of readies and the psychic kicker. So it's very easy for my my team to get them in kill range for Cable. But with Gray Malkin, Cable doesn't have to be the one that defeats it. It just says when a side scheme is defeated. So even other players can do play actions and bombard the side schemes, and you can kind of precisely time the triggers and then play something and defeat it, then play another card, defeat it, so you can do this kind of leapfrog with the support, which is really cool. Okay, so he's going to go into control.
Stars doesn't have a ton of control. You could consider, telekinetic force field.
So this is interesting. Doesn't have a lot of control. I want to understand what his definition of control is, because what comes to my mind is, are we talking about stun and confuse on the villain, stopping the villain from doing what the villain wants to do? Are we incorporating minions as called minion control, which is a little bit different? So the minions are going to hit you, maybe kill you, or maybe add more threat to the scheme. So control, in a sense, for me, is controlling that you don't lose the game. In a sense, you threat out, or more in a basic way, like slowing the villain down, control, right? Stun, confuse, that makes sense. But I look at his list and I don't see minion control or minion. So I assume minion is part of control. I could be wrong, I don't know. Or maybe damage is where the minion category is. But obviously there is minions in the game. So what does that fall under? I'm not 100% sure with him. But he's got Cable with a 2 control. So that's more on the weaker side. Not like terrible, but weak. I would say, I don't know if I give him kind of an average or weak 2-star rating, because precognition, and when you scale the difficulty up, especially to standard 2, expert 2, or harder modular sets, or a much harder villain set, being able to arrange those encounter cards or discard one really bad one that maybe surges or gives a bad boost ability, but you just pluck it out and say, nah, that is unbelievably strong. And not many heroes have that luxury of that ability. You usually have to go into justice or play a certain ally, and you're not always going to, blindfold costs 3, which can kind of be expensive sometimes. But I love blindfold. But yeah, I think if you look at precognition, that's a very good control card. Very good. His other mechanisms for control is he has the thing that amnesia upgrade. So say you have this really bad side scheme, or just let's use a easy example, right? Claw, Immortal Claw, which isn't too bad, to be honest. I never had a problem with Immortal Claw. It gives Immortal Claw 10 more health, but when you defeat it, he loses his 10 health. So what you always have to do is you have to get rid of it, because that's a lot of health, 10 health. But say you have an amnesia out, you defeat it, it's now in the victory display. So then when you flip him to the final form, he does not get Immortal Claw. You do the reveal, it doesn't happen. So that's just kind of like a cookie cutter example of control, but there's some scenarios where there is some nasty side schemes and you don't want to see them multiple times. And I think amnesia is kind of underlooked here, in my opinion. And I think with precognition and amnesia, and based on harder difficult settings, I really think control should be at least 3 stars, because those 2 things that I'm talking about right there, is extremely valuable, especially in a team atmosphere. Because there's like on harder difficulties, let me make it more simple for people to understand. There's maybe like let's give another cookie cutter example. Many people have played Venom Goblin. Now we all know the Goblin Glider from not Goblin Gimmicks, but the recommended from Venom Goblin. Everyone has experienced, maybe if they're unlucky, of him getting that freaking glider and just destroying the heroes because he gets like double activation, right? So here's the thing. Yeah, obviously, Descry, you're not going to be able to precondition it on turn one. There's no way. You have to. That's going to take time for that card to work. I agree. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying like when you're able to, if you're able to do it, get rid of these key cards, it makes your life so much more easier. So we've all experienced maybe Venom Goblin unleashing his freaking glider on us and decimating us. So like that's what I'm trying to stress. There's certain size schemes or maybe a certain treachery or attachment, and there's not many cards in the game that just allow you to be like, nope, this is gone or whatever. So having this in your toolkit, great, granted, you have to kind of build up for it, is very valuable. So again, I don't think he deserves, I understand he doesn't have Stun and Confuse, but these two cards in themselves, I think, are very unique and strong based on these settings that I'm describing. So therefore, I humbly reject his 2-star count for control, and I would like to be at a 3-star at least. All right, let's keep going.
Blocking all damage, kind of, you know, if the villain...
Mic drop. Okay.
Something that triggers on dealing damage, it stops it. Control being, you know, how I rate, you know, stopping the villain doing what the villain wants to do. But, you know, he doesn't have any stuns. He doesn't have any confuse. You can kind of stop the main scheme going over.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I even forgot to mention that card. I think it's called Future Leap or Leap something. But it's like, basically, it's like an under surveillance with a weird utility with it. It allows you to basically, if the scheme goes over, you kind of go back in time, remove 4. It usually won't pop, right? Because usually it's either on the money or a couple threat and you lose more to losing. So it's going to rewind time, grabs you another of your choosing of a victory size scheme. So say you grab the protection player size scheme, which is very low, like it's 2 per player. You remove it, you get tufts again for all your heroes. So it's beneficial, can ready cable, give all, like it. There's a lot of cool things you could do just with that card, and it's a control card, and it kind of combo-y. So again, I stress, why a 2-star? Like I just explained, just with 2 cards, but he even brought up another card that I kind of forgot about. So easily 3-star, easily 3-star.
Some kind of scenarios are sort of based around that happening, but really precognition is his main tool here. But it is basically global logistics, which is one of my favorite cards. Much better in...
Yeah, so James says, I'm glad you're cool with VT. He has a few videos into YouTube and already has this epic response video. Yeah, you know, I might be a little bit over the top with this response video, but honestly, would you guys want me sitting here in monotone voice going, yeah, I kind of agree with him. I would probably give it a 3. Like, wouldn't you rather me be a little more animated and a little bit more like kind of off the wall a bit, like I forgot to take my medication? I think you prefer that Descry Gaming, not someone just boring, just monotone voice, just being like, But I just want to say again, yeah, I love Villain Theory. He is way smarter than me. I don't want people being like, who's this jerk trying to be like he knows more than Villain Theory. Again, this is all for fun, guys. Don't hate me in the comments and be like, you're just a hater to Villain Theory. I look up to him. He is super smart. His deck building skills are off the chart. And I'm so happy that he started a channel. I'm super excited for the content that he's going to release. And it's so great for the game. But again, this is these response videos are never to target a content creator and be like they're stupid, they don't know what they're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. that if you guys get that impression from these response videos, I feel sorry for you, because that's it's more entertainment. It's a different perspective, and it's me just having fun discussing things that I like the game. And at the end of the day, um, D20, late night gaming, Night of the Living Card Game, all these content creators, we all bring something cool to the table. And don't be one of those negative Nancy's and be like, well, I don't agree with you, Descry. Okay, this is all for fun, guys. We enjoy the game, and play the game, have fun with the game, and be thankful that we have. If you don't like my style, you don't like my stuff, don't watch it. You don't have to lurk in my channel. You don't. I appreciate you being here, giving me feedback and comments. But again, you have your choice. There's tons of content creators out there, but I think a lot of people do like these sort of response things that I'm doing. If I don't do it tactfully, I'll listen to your guys' feedback and comment. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and the moment I cross that line, let me know, because I like all these guys. I'm not enemies with any of these people. But let's keep going, and I'm sure people don't get that. There might be like one weird person out there that thinks like that, but I'm pretty sure everyone understands what I'm coming from with this. But let's keep going.
Solo play compared to 4-player, and it starts off again very weak and gets better with player side schemes in general in the victory display. Look at the encounter deck, move stuff around, discard one. You can ensure you're not going to get advanced, so you can go alter ego, anything like that. You can dodge your Shadow of the Past and Obligation. It is very strong. The only sort of big mark I have against this is that Cable has so much he wants to do. He wants to play his upgrade, he wants to play side schemes, defeat them, control
That's
the
true.
board.
That's true.
I can find this a lot harder to afford than I would like. It's one of the reasons Global Logistics, one of my favorite builds, isn't my go-to kind of with Cable solo. Just because he has so much.
Oh, he said the solo word.
It is a very, very good card and does have some cool uses. So hugely.
No.
Next up, I'm going to cover reliability.
Okay, so I have no clue what his reliability category was meant for, but I'm just going to shut up and listen to him, because I need to understand what he means by it.
Normally, when a hero has 2 in every stat, that is the baseline for me to think they're reliable.
I get you.
If you play 10 games in a row, how good are they going to be, compared to...
So I think based on just what you said there, if you've ever played those 1 Thort, 2 or 3 stat heroes, there's a lot of awkward times where you're like, damn, I'm short one Thort on the scheme. If my freaking hero was at least 2 threat, this wouldn't be a problem. So I think that is a big factor in his reliability factor. Is from the gates, when I start the game, Captain America is probably a 5 on his list. I don't know what he rated Captain America, but I can imagine it has to be a 5. Spectrum probably a 5, because those heroes right off the gates can do amazing threat removal, damage if they want to. They're just ready to go, guns blazing, right off the gate. So I believe that's what he's sort of talking about, like that initial momentum. Now, Cable's interesting because Cable, like I said, his thing is like a support structure for the start, where if you're playing Cable properly, you're more thinking about your other teammates and getting a player size scheme completed on turn 1. So reliability is kind of awkward with him, because sometimes it's a team effort to help Cable accomplish that first side scheme. But let's keep hearing about it.
To one another, you're gonna have some really bad games and some really good games. They're all going to be good. Win every stat normally means you're pretty versatile and reliable. The problem is Cable has a few issues with that. He can also grab a side scheme and a setup as his setup ability, which is quite reliable. You can, it takes a lot of the randomness if you can guarantee which one you want turn 1. But the problem is then getting the rest of your side schemes, depending on when you find Professor or on where they sit in your deck, it can take a bit longer to get them than others. Your Obligation can really mess up your plan with Technovirus Purge. Your Shadow of the Past set is devastating. That can definitely end some games. So I think, let's say you play 10 games with Cable. I think you're going to get a mixture of experiences in each one.
All right, so this is what I'm going to say regarding what he's talking about. Yes, totally understand about the obligation getting in the way, shadows of the past, 100%. But you got to factor in, and like I said, your reliability is almost tuned into your teammates, right? You're a support player size scheme hero at its surface, the way I interpret Cable. Um, you're supercharging Domino, Drax, Ant-Man's helmet, or whatever type of strategy you want to do at the start. Protection player, Black Widow ally, boom, turn one, going into a bunch of encounter cards on Venom Goblin or Green Goblin, where you have turn one deal with all these encounter cards. Great ally to put out there. So that reliability is kind of translating into your team almost in a weird way, which is off the charts if we look at it in that way. But again, I don't know if I'm misinterpreting. Maybe again, he might be talking about solo here, and again, that's where the disconnect is. But for me, talking about Cable, I want to talk about him in multiplayer, but that's another topic. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if I'm describing it the way I'm describing it, I'm putting that reliability like 4 or 5. But I might maybe I'm misunderstanding what he's trying to reflect here with this category. It's kind of a complicated category based on what I'm trying to say, what Cable is and all this, and we're talking about reliability. It's a weird category to me, but let's keep going.
So score's quite low for reliability for me so far. So a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Because I understand, yes, Shadows is devastating, Obligation is annoying, but Cable is off the charts for how strong he is on a team support player. He's up there with Storm, if not maybe stronger than Storm, because the player size schemes are just that good. Again, this is my opinion, this is my viewpoint, and you guys are getting just a different realm of looking at this hero, right? You're getting a smaller content creator thoughts instead of these bigger ones kind of repeating themselves. Well, okay, that was a low blow, Descry. Don't play dirty like that. But all I'm saying is, from what I've seen out there so far with the reviews on Cable, they're all kind of saying the same thing. And I would love to find a review out there that's kind of mimicking what I'm trying to say. I haven't come across that one. So yes, I'm being a little negative, but so far I haven't seen anyone kind of talking the way out that I'm talking about Cable, to the point where he does even mention Cable as a support hero. I'm pretty sure he never mentions it. Like, he might have danced around it a bit, like, oh, he's super good at helping the team or whatever. But you got to say the word. He is like a Storm. He is like a Cyclops. He's going to help your team. There's no, I wanted him to embrace that aspect, but he didn't. But again, he says in his review that this is kind of still nuances. There's new things changing, and his stuff for Cable might change in the future. So he might maybe jump on the same train as me and start saying, yes, I totally see what you're seeing, Descry. Or he might disagree with me, and I'm totally fine with that. But let's keep going.
And speaking of scoring low, we have his readiness.
All right, when I first saw this category, I'm like, okay, is he just talking about being able to ready your hero? And then I was like, I think, but I'm not sure if that's what his category is just about. Like, can your hero ready? I don't think that's what his category means. So I'm just going to shut up and listen to him and try to figure out what his category of readiness means.
Cable doesn't start as weak as, I would say Quicksilver, but he takes a long time to build up. Depending on luck, you can build faster by defeating all these player side schemes, but even doing that, can slow you down a bit because you're putting so much into doing that. You're not doing a lot else. Again, Grey Malkin readying when you defeat a side scheme helps. Cable readying helps. But it definitely takes a while. Cable is a very slow build, which is a little bit unfortunate. I don't know if maybe his events would have been...
All right, I just want to make a comment before I lose my thought, but it sounds like he's... the way he's describing his category for readiness is how fast they can get online and the machine going, right? So what you mean by that is it's like, I'll give you an example. Iron Man, right? Iron Man, once he's built up with all his pieces, he's obviously more, he does more damage, he thwarts more, he has way more momentum with what he can do and help the team. So that's what I'm getting from his interpretation of readiness. Now, I agree with him that Cable has a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of pieces to put out there. Again, his readiness is also tied into the team because, again, you are a support type hero. Your focus is to get your other teammates more quicker in their readiness. You know, the build support, getting a key ally out, getting a key upgrade out. So again, and almost like a broken record, it to me, it's really tied into your team, like because of the support nature of him. Unless we're talking solo, which again, I don't want to talk about Cable as a solo hero, because yes, he is a little more awkward. He sings more in multiplayer, and just like I think Rogue sings in multiplayer way more than solo. And I know Rogue can be a beast in solo. I'm not trying to say she can't, be really good in solo, but these heroes just uh just feel so much better in multiplayer, and they synergize so much better to what their toolkit is trying to do. But what I'm trying to say, guys, and try to cut this short here, is I think that's a very low ranking, and I think he's disconnecting with the fact that his readiness really is tied to the other team. Because with Cable, and I'll keep saying it like a broken record, you're the support player side scheme player. You get what the team needs. You get them set up quickly. You get them protected more quickly. These side schemes are super powerful, and it really supercharges your team. So I think really the readiness is sort of linked to that. Now I do agree with him. His toolkit, and to get him supercharged on himself and make him that really OP hero, it takes time to do that. Yes, I agree with you that, but to give him a 1, that's bad in that sense. Again, if the counter argument that I made probably put him at a 3 for readiness, but explain that he's a support type hero, more focused on getting your teammates set up quicker than yourself, and then he'll come eventually, and his readiness will be there. But I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm trying to get at. Like, 1 is really bad, guys. But again, if we're talking solo, yes, I guess that makes sense to be a 1. But so I just wanted to, again, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding him on his category, but that's how I see it.
Benefited from starting, with +1, remove 4 threat instead of 3, but then maybe having a cap on how high they can go. I'm not quite sure. I don't know what people would prefer. I don't know what I would prefer. I've not actually tested that out, but definitely he starts a little bit slow for me.
Yeah, I just want to. So Raul Ramirez says he has a video of all the rankings for the current hero pool, and he goes over each of his rap sheet categories. Yes, I understand that, Raul, and I probably should have did my research and homework before we jumped into this, but I just thought like a layman like me could get an idea what he means by these categories. Like, I didn't think I need to go to his guru booklet and understand what he means by economy control. I just assumed I could kind of figure that out based on how much I play Marvel Champions. But you do make a good point, but you could say I dropped the ball there. I should have spent some time to research this, but I didn't. You caught me. I will go to the principal's office, I promise.
Liking. Not everyone can be super strong from the beginning. I definitely, don't think he should just start full power, but it is something to consider. He does have forced amnesia to help get a normal side scheme into the victory display alongside the player ones, or any scenario or campaign ones that have victory on them. But the problem with forced amnesia is sort of my problem with precognition, in that I have so much I urgently need to do on Cable all the time. Unless I see there's a normal side scheme out already, and I can guarantee get it into the victory display, that turn, and know I'm getting a bonus. Rarely can I afford to like put this into play for 2 effective resources, then wait for a side scheme to then use it. That's something I struggle to find myself able to do. But it is very cool, and you can use this card to if a side scheme has come into play.
Yeah. Heroic Skeleton, I agree with you. Heroic Skeleton says, I think the fact that he can get build support in play at the start of the game alone should bump up his readiness at least a bit. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Which is really kind of shocking that he gave him a 1, because I'm like, come on, Villain Theory, like a 1? Like, wow. But I mean, he's on point. Like, the Villain Theory is on point with a lot of things he's saying. They all make sense. But like, there's questionable things there. But again, this is new, guys. I think he even said he only played Cable like 4 or 5 times, like not a ton. Me too. I haven't played Cable a ton either. So I think, at the end of the day, I might say some things that are kind of not smart, and I'll probably contradict myself later on and disagree with it. But let's keep going.
That the villain will also bring into play when it changes to its final stage. You can use Forced Amnesia to lock it away in the victory display, and then when you flip the villain to their final stage, it won't come in.
How is that readiness? He's using Forced Amnesia as an example of readiness? That's weird. Okay.
So it's very, very cool. The card value is interesting because late game Cable's events and Plasma Rifle, they're hitting really hard. Early game, very, very weak. I decided on 2 being the correct rating here, because he also has a few cards like Telekinetic Force Field. I don't think.
So I think this is the problem with his scale, because, or maybe it's a problem with me. So the way I think he's interpreting is he's looking at the start of the game, middle of the game, end of the game, and then he's factoring how good the card value is in each of those periods. But the truth of the matter is, most heroes aren't S tier, S tier, S tier in that order, like early, mid, late. Iron Man is a good example of F tier early game, gets a little bit better mid game, and then through the roof S tier late game, right? So that just gives you guys kind of an idea of what I'm talking about here, because Iron Man's an easy example of it. Then you have Spectrum, that is S tier right off the bat, like just for card value and mechanic, right off the bat. And then mid game, it's like doesn't really get extremely better, but a little bit better. And then late game doesn't change too much with Spectrum. So I don't know if that's sort of how he's doing his final 2 stars here. For me though, and this is the problem, is like, I think the game, most games of Marvel Champions is, they sort of go through a dance of, try to get set up, control, try to do some damage, and then go in for the big 1-2 punch, right? So, if we're going by that timeline, sometimes the late game is more important, or the mid game is more important. But I also can see the early game in some scenarios as important too. So this is a complex question. It's not easy to answer because there's a lot of factors and dynamics here. But what I'm trying to elaborate to you guys is that I'm trying to make you guys understand where maybe he's getting his 2 stars and what that means, what he's really trying to say. And I'm trying to explain that in a gameplay environment. Or of course, I guess you go watch the first video with all the heroes and maybe he explains it better than I'm explaining it. But I think, though, it has to be more than 2 stars because his cards just go through the roof late game. And to me, that makes up for them being really weak in the early game, because generally speaking, there's not a whole lot of scenarios where you have to just go 100, 180, pedal to the metal on turn 1, and you have to blow up. You have to, a lot of scenarios gives you a little bit of time, a little bit, you maybe get roughed up a little bit on round one, but for the most part, you don't need to be S tier at the start of the game. But another thing is, if we're talking about card value, again, go back to that he's a support hero that can pinpoint exactly what the team needs, and the player size schemes are S tier in value, in my opinion. So their card value is huge at turn one, at round one. Round one is the most important. It kind of sets the pace of the whole game. So I think, again, the way I'm describing everything, I think I make a perfect case that his card value is actually extremely good. If we're talking early game with the player size schemes, it's through the roof. Yes, your telekinetic blasts, some of your other cards are duds, but for the most part, most heroes are kind of like that in Marvel Champions. They need time to get set up. A lot of heroes, but I think he deserves a higher rating than 2. That's what I'm trying to say. Again, 3, 4 maybe, because again, those player size schemes are just so good. But I hope I don't know. I hope I'm doing a good job with this response to his categories. Maybe people feel like I'm talking about something totally different here, but I'm trying to stay on the ball here with him.
Versatility quite justifies its price being, one higher. I don't think Cable would be overpowered if it was just, one cheaper. Temporal Leap, I think, is quite expensive as well. I'd rather put the money into preventing the main scheme going over than,
And I just want to make a comment. I know someone will probably say, dude, you're talking about aspect cards. Anybody can run player size schemes. How is that? That's not even Cable's toolkit. He has one player size scheme, which is the zero cost Techno Purge, which you don't really want to play on turn one. Yes, but the problem is when you play other heroes, a lot of times you're not getting the right player size scheme you need at the start, or you might not even get it. And then that's also bloating your deck sometimes. And I just think Cable is the man when it comes to how the player size schemes work. I mean, he takes advantage of it so well and so precisely that I almost talk about the player size schemes as if it were in his toolkit, just based on his abilities and how he can deal with them. So I understand they're not part of his toolkit, so to speak, but his whole way he works and what he can do on turn one allows you to do things that no other heroes can with player size schemes. So that's sort of my counter argument to you, but let's keep going.
Oh, it has gone over. Now I'll use this. It is just really, in my opinion, good for stopping the treachery version of Mind Scan from your Nemesis set from ending the game. And, some main schemes, when they advance, are very bad. Some of them have very low threat values, like Ultron's first scheme. So this can be kind of, good in certain situations. But, the overall value, I think, of his cards, especially starting off, even in the mid game, sometimes not going to hit as hard as other heroes.
Okay, so I think, card value, he's kind of going over how well some cards are with him. And I've already gushed about a lot of different cards if you watch some of my stream. So again, and that's why I stress, why is it a 2 value? Come on, at least I would minimum 4 for me. His cards are so good. Precondition, Body Slide, Telekinetic Blast gets super powerful late game. His Mind Scans are a beast late game. The player size scheme, manipulation, his economy card is one of the, if not one of the best economy cards in the game. Great Melkin. So I think I make some good arguments of maybe that should be jacked up way higher than a 2. But let's keep going.
Stuff. They're still pretty decent, and again by late game, very good. So kind of hard to rate, but hopefully this makes sense to you guys. Up next, we have ease of play, and I think this will surprise people. I put it at 1 star. I think he's difficult. I think he's...
So I would say I agree with him on this, because if you have someone at the table and they're kind of oblivious to certain things with Cable, and they're just kind of having I'm just going to wing it, you might be in trouble. Because he's got some very scary stuff that can affect the whole team or affect you to get to a losing condition. So and then also he's a support type hero, and that totally makes sense. If you're not in that mindset that Cable is a support hero, um, I shudder to think to see how you're going about playing with in a group of multiplayer with him, because really, to me, he shines when you play him as a support hero. And I think you'll make more friends than enemies, because if you're playing him like a solo hero, that's just weird. I mean, a good example is if you ever played with maybe a Storm player and maybe they had a little bit too much to drink that day, and they're just like say you do Colossus, Stun and Confuse event, punch, and then Storm players like, oh, I want to draw a card, Clear Skies. Yeah, and I know you guys probably had one of those moments where you're like, why? So, anyways, there is such thing as bad piloting by players. Now, I will say this, guys. I encourage you play heroes. The more plays you get, the better you will get at the game. The better you will get at these heroes. When I first got into this game, I was terrible at any hero you give me, even Doctor Strange, which is hard to think. How could you play Doctor Strange bad? But really, what it comes down to is it's just playing the game, and by playing the game, you will actually just learn, and you'll start seeing the value of certain things and combos and what you can do and how you can set up, and then that'll translate into understanding the counter deck and how much the villain could do to you, and you start to really develop your knowledge and your play style. But yeah, if you're new to the game or you're new to a hero, don't expect to be Michael Jordan. I'm going to be on Michael Jordan Cable today. I'm just going to be doing amazing 3D chess and everything. That's probably not going to happen. But to get more to his point is I totally agree with him. I think there's a lot of moving pieces. At a surface, Cable looks a little more simple. I mean, Domino is definitely a 1-2. And I love Domino, but I think these heroes, strangely enough, they do require finesse and time spent playing them to get better at playing them, because there's a lot of moving parts, and that's what I'm saying. So I totally agree with them. But for someone that is a quick learner, knows the game, probably not a 1 ease of play, but we're talking about the average Marvel Champion player. So if we're talking in that regard, yeah, I'd probably say 1.
Sometimes in subtle ways difficult. I don't think he looks difficult. Like, oh yeah, I want to play side schemes and defeat them. But balancing how many resources you're dedicating to removing schemes, and how much you're dedicating to actually controlling the board is a very fine line to walk. I think there's a ton of decision making that goes into his opening side scheme. Again, phenomenal job. They did balancing all the different options. And again, in multiplayer, if you've got 4 different people, you're having to weigh up what your starting side scheme is, based on, first of all, you get your opening hand, and you're like, how is this going to interact?
You got to communicate, guys.
Then you do your mulligan, and then how is this going to interact? You're factoring in 4, different players, including yourself, into all these decisions, then having to pick that side scheme that's going to benefit everyone the most, that you can deal with, that kind of fits in with your opening there. So a lot of huge decisions there. And even with Professor going forward, trying to work out the sequencing to get the ready from Cable, by defeating a side scheme himself, but also the readies on Grey Malkin and putting Grey Malkin's resource in the right place. There's a lot of interesting sequencing there that actually, I think, rivals Colossus, actually from the previous expansion, as some of the more difficult, more nuanced decision making, even if it might not look that way at a glance. I think his deck building makes a big difference as well. So it's not necessarily ease of play, but I think choosing the right deck and playing it well can add to difficulty, and he is a character.
Yeah, I just want to add some more things, and I'm agreeing with him on the 1 star. Body slide is a good example of, at its surface, you're like, okay, I swap forms and anybody can join with me, but at its surface, it's like, okay, whatever. But there's so many unique combos and synergies. There's some heroes that being able to get a free swap to take advantage of certain abilities in altar, or to hero and then safely go back to altar to be safe, is not to be downplayed. It is huge. And someone that's kind of new to Cable might not see that, or they might not take advantage of your gray milk and support and get the full advantage of it every turn. You got to calculate and higher player counts. You got to calculate more of that player threat per player. So you have to calculate, you have to communicate with your teammates and be like, well, if you could get it down this amount, then I could, with a play action or whatever, I can take care of it, get a free ready. So again, other heroes don't have to think about those things. So again, 100%, I think he's on the money with that.
Where that comes into play.
Now, and again, it's actually, I wouldn't, for me, I don't consider a 1-star ease to play a negative. It's just that it's going to require you to spend more time learning and being smart. That's all it kind of, so it's kind of weird. It's like a 1-star, but in my book, if you have something super easy to play, usually it's not very dynamic or interesting, which I think the developers have said they want. Okay, I'll give you guys another example because I've always been trying to throw these examples out there. So on record, the developers said that when they designed Hulk, they wanted Hulk to be very easy to play. That was their words. I believe it's in an interview, that Hulk could do maybe 1 or 2 things, but simple for anyone to pick up Hulk, and he does these big kind of swings or whatever, like Hulk smash. So, but in a weird sense, that was their idea, ease to play with Hulk. And you would think Hulk would be like probably a 5, like, oh, he's super easy to play. In reality, Hulk is a nightmare to play because his hand size is so small. He has a bad economy. He has a negative hero interrupt. His alter ego is a neutral, basically, and most heroes have a positive. So in a way, Hulk is kind of like a 1 because, again, you get a new player, and if they're not aware with all these negatives and shortcomings of Hulk, they're just going to suffer. So it's so funny how like the developers like, yeah, we try to make Hulk easy to play. I bet you, I'd be curious to know what Hulk was rated with Villain Theory if you put Hulk a 1 or a 5, because I feel like it's how you interpret Hulk. But what I'm trying to say is, when the wheels are turning and the hero is singing, that's when you've got this. You're playing the hero well, and the ease of play is like high, or you've understood the hero. But like Hulk is kind of like, I try to explain it in a weird way, like where it's weird. But anyways, let's keep going.
Okay.
That's right. We did get into Hulk, even though we're talking about Cable. Poor Hulk.
Actually, that is my opinion on that.
I just want to say Hulk for life. I love Hulk, and when we get these new player side upgrades, I'm going all in Hulk, baby. You're gonna watch me lay down the smack with Hulk.
There is another new character that completely smashes my scale of 1 to 5.
Wow, you used the word smash there. See, Villain Theory knows what I'm talking about.
As compared to the other characters, but we'll talk about that in the next video. So yeah, but on the scale I've used for every other character, I'm putting this guy for 1 at the moment. And then we have variety up next. And before I give a score for that, I want to talk about kind of where I think the variety comes from with Cable and what affects it, how high and how low I'm going to put it. So first of all, for variety for any hero, one of the things I'm looking at is how many cards am I kind of looking to put in that hero's deck, no matter what deck it is. Doesn't matter what I'm trying to do in Justice. Is this card always in the deck? Or what about basic cards? If a few basic cards are in every single deck for that character, it makes them feel a lot more samey. So we have what I'm calling the auto includes. Now,
so I just want to say this is an interesting category, and I like his approach in this category. It's interesting, and because I know Josh made a good video about auto includes, and his conclusion was it varies. It varies from each hero, and I 100% agree with Josh. And I assume Villain Theory will kind of take that mindset, but he's going to probably highlight some key cards depending on the aspect you are that are almost auto includes with Cable. And I'll just see if I agree with him on this regard, but let's keep going.
Good Investigator is kind of an auto include in anyone.
Yeah, 100%.
But particularly,
I mean, 100% for Cable for sure. Like, that's what I'm trying to say.
in Cable, I'm putting 2 of these in most of my Justice decks just because he is getting through
Hell no, I'm putting 3, and I'm saying Merry Christmas to everybody at the table.
so many side schemes. And I think in multiplayer, you could easily go up to 3 even in 2-player. Definitely in 3 and 4-player, you're desperate for this card. It's kind of stands.
I hate it, like, when you're in, like, a 3 or 4-player game, and you're like, okay, we got a Justice player. All right, when am I going to get that Skill Investigator? And then the reality sinks in. Oh, dude, I'm only running 1. You just, like, look at your Justice player, and it's like the eyes of shame and, like, betrayal just flow through your emotions. And you're just like, why? Why? No, please, if you're a Justice player and you're playing multiplayer, please bring a skilled investigator for your buddy, okay? It's not cool, man. It's definitely not cool for you to slap that beautiful skill investigator down on yourself and to be like, oh, sorry, don't have one for you. Don't do that. Don't be one of those players, please.
Practice in 3-player anyway, I would say, but it's so essential for him. But it's kind of the Justice tax anyway. It almost always does that, so it is what it is. Mission Leader is a new card. Again, I had to take this picture, apologies. But again, I think every single leadership...
Unacceptable. I want better from you, Villain Theory. Don't do that to me, okay? All right? Okay.
Deck for Cable has this, where not every single leadership deck for other...
Guys, let's do a GoFundMe. We'll get him like one of those really nice printers with a scanner, and then we'll ship it to his house. And then he won't be able to use that excuse anymore. We want high def image scans from you, Villain Theory. All right, so let's do it. Let's set up a GoFundMe. We'll get him a really fancy smancy scanner, and he'll be scanning away all these cards for us.
Characters will. Definitely in 3 and 4-player, I think it's an auto-include. If you're a soldier, I think even in 2-player, most people take it. In solo...
auto-include 100%. If you're running leadership Cable and you do not include mission leader, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Man.
I don't know if most people would take mission leader, but Cable definitely does.
The first reaction is, brah, seriously?
He's always wanting mission leader. And then, of course, he needs side schemes, and he's not going to always want every side scheme that has been shown, especially as we get more coming out in the future. But I think the 3 I have listed here, currently 1 to 4-player.
And I never thought we would have a card that would supersede Skill Investigator. Like, I'm like, and then Fantasy Flight, you outdid yourself. You bring in mission leader that just crapped all over the Justice player skilled investigator. But no, listen, it's still rainbows and unicorns, because you can still play a bunch of skill investigators with mission leader if you're running Justice and leadership on the table with people. So they can still coincide with each other. But I just think it's funny how like leadership is like, hold my beer, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna be a mission leader today.
I can't see builds where he doesn't take these. If everyone has a good weapon, meaning all the time in solo, I think lock and load gets added on here.
All right.
Depending on your
gosh, we're only halfway through. All right, so we're gonna kind of fast forward a little bit because obviously we've talked to death about player size games. I don't think we need to spend some time talking about player size games. We've literally go through this stream. It's been talked through the ringer, and yeah. Let's just go to
and actually
this.
Varied builds he can actually use this on, especially depending on player count. I've got a deck based around this called The Ends Justify the Means on Marvel's CDB, so I'll include the link down below if you're interested. But yeah, this is probably the most obvious build for him in the most obvious aspect, and it is very good. Another kind of way you could build him is focus more on the mutant.
So X-Mansion, I tried X-Mansion. But I think if you're multiplayer with X-Men allies, yeah, it's okay. Or if you can honorary X-Men Cable or whatnot. But at first I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do the mutant education combo and get my X-Mansion out. But like, I found it a little clunky. Like, what I mean by clunky is, sometimes things don't line up the way you think it's going to line up. Hi, Joshy. So yeah, that's all I would say kind of about that is, I think it still works, but I wasn't like over the moon with Mutant Education cable type deck, but I'm not saying it's bad. It's extremely strong, especially late game, because you can reoccur those high value cards. But I found that I would not get the right setups for it, and it just seemed clunky to me. But let's keep going.
Education card, you can hybrid these builds, and even put Mutant Education in most other aspects with your builds. But I think Justice can really lean into free copies, getting down to Ultra Ego safely, especially at the lower player counts, which is really cool. So you can cycle your more powerful, boosted events. Once you've got side schemes in the victory display, you keep getting their huge value more often. I think that's very cool. Leadership. He comes with Uncanny
100%.
X-Force and these
Uncanny X-Force tribal deck. Yeah, it's really powerful.
Characters you see here in Precon. That build is very, very good. I like to sprinkle in a couple of upgrades. Since we don't have many.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to get this thing wrapped up, guys, because it's getting late. Partly my fault because I took a long time talking about certain things, but I agree. Venom X, super agree. Auto Clue with Uncanny. Deadpool, I love him in leadership. Cable. Single Alley Focus. I like doing the tribal, so this is not tribal on to the right. Let's see what else he's got. Oh no, the spinning hourglass. The death of the channel. Okay,
one
here we go.
Voltron builds, which is putting a lot of rapid, notably in solo.
All right, so let's just take a look. Yeah, Wolverine's excellent. You can get him with Call for Backup. Sunfire is super good in a lot of scenarios with attachments. Yeah, I can see Braun could take Tufts off and give you that like ping damage for scheme. Bug is weird because Cable's not doing a lot of basic attacks in my opinion. He's focused on getting the player size schemes out with Thorting. You're hoping for Villain Theory to do a response of a response. Yeah, that would be epic. I like Professor X and Power of Mine. I haven't tried, but it looks interesting. I'm just trying to speed this up a bit, guys. I'm glad he picked Black Widow. Yep. For most part, he's right on the money with a lot of these auto includes, and there's not really kind of a complaint. I'm liking a lot of his suggestions. So we're turboing through this. Honorable mentions. That's his shield archetype. Yeah, I've seen that on Marvel DB. That looks really interesting. I'm not a huge go-getter for go all out, push ahead, because I believe his late event cards in his toolkit actually scale better than these, or they're just more easier to get online once you achieve the late game. I feel like these are just more of your solid cards that you have, like Mind Blast and your Mind Scan. Why do you need more of this? But yeah, I guess it could work, but I'm not sold on it too much. I see. You can cheat in Web of Life with your build personal thing and then just keep recurring SPDR. I mean, that's cute. That's cute. But if you play on Standard 2, you get a overwhelming force, and that is your highest upgrade, most likely, maybe. And there it goes. It's back discarded, and now you got to kind of pay the piper. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if it's too cute. Like sometimes you get maybe too cute for the game. Again, I would have to play test that, but it's interesting. I like that he has interesting ideas here, and that's what's cool. We're getting to the end here. Fun and variety. Each aspect plays very differently. Okay, I'll let him speak a little bit here.
The other thing I think to take into account here is even though he has all these different builds, you're always hunting this player side schemes. Builds play differently, but still you want these side schemes.
All right, and Joshy's in the building too, playing with my tokens. So if you hear a lot of clicking and weird 3-year-old sounds, that's Joshy, not Descry.
In the victory display. So
no, don't touch
the
that.
variety is only going to go so far. Your game plan is largely going to be the same. It's just a different way you achieve that game plan.
No, Joshy, don't do that.
Still a lot of variety, but I think, you know, it is still very reliant on the same overall plan, same goal at the end of the day, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it, but you know, I can see people who don't like player side schemes are not going to like Cable because there's no real alternative way to play. I do think again that opening side scheme and you know using Professor has so many cool options. Every game is going to unfold differently. You can take the same deck, get a different start, and that will have kind of a cascading effect on how the game plays out. So yeah, actually.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I agree with him. He actually is fun to play, as maybe almost as fun as Domino. At least I'm experiencing that, because like he's gonna go into, there's almost like a mini game of like you're gotta catch them all, almost like a game of Pokemon or something, and you're obsessed with player size games. So it's kind of fun in that regard. But it's really cool because, like I said, it's almost like a little game within itself. And then you got the wild factor of his Shadows of the Past encounter set, his obligation that throws some curveballs at you. But while you're doing this, you're also trying to help your team, being a support player size scheme specialist. So again, I'm loving Cable, and I'm just trying to. I agree with him. He is fun, and I believe he's varied as well. I think there's many ways you can go with him. It'll also get bigger as we get more player size schemes put into our pool. So the future is bright for Cable, and he's a lot of fun. And I think though, for me, I feel like there's a lot of negativity towards Cable, but I think it's more of maybe just misunderstanding him a little bit. And maybe after watching my response, people will kind of give him maybe more of a second look, or maybe open up to him a little bit more. But let's keep going. I want to get to the crown jewel of his final rank for Cable, which then we're going to lay the smackdown on Villain Theory. And then Villain Theory is going to lay the smackdown back on a response video to then smack down Descry for how wrong I am. Okay, let's go.
I like the variety quite a lot here. This is more for fun, which we'll cover soon, but I thought I'd include it on this screen here. I think something that's going to affect how much you enjoy Cable is going to be reliant on your other players. If everyone just, builds their own deck, free-form deck building, just pick whatever character you want, do whatever, and then we'll bring them together in multiplayer. If that's how you guys, come together in multiplayer, you're not going to have as good of a time as if you say, hey, I'm playing Cable, maybe build your decks with that in mind.
Yeah.
Bring an expensive
communicate with your team.
Back up. Make sure you've got something to help me with threat removal. Make sure you've got an effective.
Don't play Cable and be Mr. Solo. I'm a one-man army solo player. No, please don't play Cable like that. Play Cable like you would play Storm, Cyclops. Be very, open communication. Keep that line going. And you'll see that not only you will enjoy that, but your teammates will enjoy that too, because you're helping your teammates. So, yeah.
Support and upgrade on your hero because of, superpower training and build support. Careful coordination is going to elevate Cable in multiplayer. He's going to be an extremely good support hero to ensure he can help players get the cards they need. The starting side scheme in multiplayer is going to be huge. If you can guarantee Ant-Man can get his helmet on turn 1, devastating.
The Ant-Man analogy
Colossus,
never gets old.
Wifey, pretty saying that right.
Drax.
Wifey mastery on Drax.
Yeah,
really,
Dwight Teeth.
Really
Raw.
So coordinating with Cable is going to elevate him. So for variety, I'm putting him at 3 stars. It's the focusing on side schemes and mostly taking several of the its best ones in most builds. I definitely think brings it down a little bit. But very very many options otherwise and around those, which I think is really cool. So variety is hitting 3 for me, which I think is pretty good. I think it's a high 3. I think it's almost 4. So I like the variety. I don't think it's going to rival anything like Nova, but still excellent. Then we have the fun factor.
Yes, give it to me. Give it to me.
But I'm putting it at 5 stars. I love the
5
minigame of trying to defeat these
star.
side schemes and then
Yes.
ready, get the most value out of Grey Malkin. You know, there's a lot of cool sequencing things.
Rest in
a lot of
peace,
cool
headphone
decision-making,
users.
and it's not overwhelming, but it is very
Unsubscribe to
in-depth, which
Descry.
I really like. And I think it's very satisfying to, you know, get these readies. You know, you have to earn them. You have to find the threat removal from Cable, not allies or other players. I think that's really cool. I think the side schemes being framed as missions is very thematic. That does add to the fun, in my opinion. Body slide just feels, you know, you're breaking the rules. You get to go ultra, you get and bring people with you, or vice versa.
Yes, fun factor 5, baby. Really cool. I agree.
So I have a lot of fun with Cable. He's gripped me more than most heroes.
I just want to read my comments in chat. Mark says, was 100% behind Cable from the get-go. And for me, he didn't disappoint.
If I'm honest with you, I don't know if he's going to end up in my top 10 long term. There's probably some recency bias. I will see where he lands in the future. But, you know, I can't remember another hero in an expansion box.
Okay, give me your final ranking. Come on. Don't keep me in
definitely some good heroes in this
anticipation here.
That is where I stand on Cable. Overall, I'm going to rate him in the B tier for power. That is...
No!
You know, he's not been out that long. This is not a definitive. This is how all his stats actually are. This is how his power looks.
No, Joshy,
So
it's bad. You gave him a B tier.
I think it's on the sort of middle.
Villain theory. My role model.
To lower end of B tier, which I rated in my last.
It's a dagger through the heart.
Not extremely good, but you know, very good still.
Okay.
I think his stats are not
B+?
quite what we'd be looking at in terms of how I rated them
villain,
here.
B+.
But I think there's extra value in completing these side schemes and the synergies going on with that. But the main thing holding him back is how slow he is to build up. Villain. A little bit painful sometimes, but for me it's an enjoyable puzzle. I think deck building for tempo.
All right. The gloves are coming off. No. Yeah. Joshy, agree with me. You're my son. Come on. B tier. Wow. Just wow. I'm shocked. Okay. You did my dude dirty, man. No. Let me say this. Okay, I respect his grading here. I mean, at the end of the day, okay, he put a lot of thought, energy, his spreadsheets and everything. His stars came aligned up. Okay, he gave Mr. Cable a B. Okay, no animosity, no hatred, no like dagger in the back. Villain theory. I love you. I love your work, and a lot of your stuff. I 100% agree with you. You're on point. I love your stuff, but I will counterclaim you. And based on my description of how awesome player side schemes are to the meta and to the way the game is, and how he is the S tier player side scheme support hero and will be probably for the future going on. There might be another hero that can take advantage of player side schemes, probably, and that might compete a little bit with Cable. But I think Cable will always be the OG, the true Michael Jordan of the S class for support player side scheme hero, which I wish you really would have categorized him in. But that being said, if this is a multiplayer environment, you have a Cable player that knows what they're doing, communicating well with the team, deck builds smart for the scenario, uses the correct player size schemes, and goes into it with the right mindset and gets it done on turn one. Tempo's there, playing, gelling with the team. This is something that no other hero can do. He has cards that are just extremely valuable in multiplayer and in a support environment. This is not a B tier hero. No way. Double H hockey sticks, or L hockey sticks, what I'm trying to say. I am going to even go to extreme and say he is an S tier hero. Disclaimer, if you play him in the way I described, okay? And then obviously if we're talking about solo, no, he is not an S tier solo hero based on he synergizes so well, and his value goes up in a team game multiplayer environment. All right, there is the Descry. Gloves are off. Descry giving him an S tier ranking. Yes, that's up there with Doctor Strange, Storm, Spider-Ham. I am putting him in an S tier bracket based on everything that I described a lot in the video and in my final conclusions. I would love a response video from you, Villainteer, if you want to do a response of a response and challenge me on that. But I think I make a good case, and this was fun. I enjoyed your thorough review of Cable. I think you bring so much to the table to your thoughts and your content. Please don't stop making them. And again, this was just a lighthearted discussion. I don't want you to take this as I'm trying to belittle you or any way regard. In fact, you know, I look up to you for knowledge and everything you give. This is just me being me and being very passionate and giving my perspective. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was a long one. I highly doubt you guys stayed to the whole entire video, but what I'll try to do is, for the same people out there, when this gets uploaded, I'll try to timestamp the important key things like the ratings, the initial kind of intro part, just so like people can kind of get to the meat and potatoes that they want to hear a response of. So hopefully I will get that done. But anyways, thanks guys for just literally staying in. It looks like we had a lot of people, for my channel that is, watch this live. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the people that made comments and were interactive with me. And again, if you guys like this content, if you like me kind of making kind of a fool of myself in some way for entertainment, and you like me to challenge other content creators, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, make a comment on this video, because the more you show me love on these type of videos, the better it is for the channel. This video gets seen by more people, this gets bigger, and so it's going to push me to do more content and such and such. So again, thank you guys. I appreciate you giving me your time and your eyes basically and ears. But anyways, this will be it. Once again, I will see you next time, and I'm going to start doing a new catchphrase. We are champions. As I awkwardly try to shut my stream down.